Chapter 1900. Outside Snowwind Ridge. The Wolf Army and Goshawk Gang's 100,000 troops attacked the Immortal Array continuously for 7 days and 7 nights. This Immortal Array was initially indestructible, but under the constant attacks of the 100,000 troops, the energy of the spirit stones in the Immortal Array's array cores decreased rapidly. The light emitted by the Immortal Array was obviously much dimmer than before. Every attack of the army would cause the Immortal Array to shake. After 7 days of recuperation, the wound on Yu Hao's abdomen had been bandaged and stopped bleeding. Although he was still unable to fight, he had at least regained the ability to move. Yu Hao and Xia Qingying looked at the army outside Snowwind Ridge with serious expressions. The two of them knew very well that once the spirit stones in the array cores were used up, and the Immortal Array broke, it would be the time of Snowwind Ridge's destruction. There were no extra spirit stones in Snowwind Ridge. Even if there were, the two of them did not know how to replace them. This Immortal Array would not last for long. Xia Qingying held Yu Hao's hand tightly. The two of them looked at each other, and there was no need for words. Even if the two of them died, they would die together. Big brother, almost all the major factions are here, but no one dares to stand out and fight against the Wolf Army and Goshawk Gang. Shenfei sighed. Over the past 7 days, Scorpio Gang, Thunder Hall, and other major factions on Dragon Abyss Planet had arrived at Snowwind Ridge one after another. Moreover, those who came were all the leaders of the major factions. The Scorpio Gang's leader, Thunder Hall's leader, Heaven Fiend Sect's leader, Mystic Een Mountain's leader, Skyfire Hall's leader, and Profound Light Sect's leader had all come personally. However, be it the Scorpio Gang's leader, Thunder Hall's leader, or the other leaders, they did not bring many people. Some brought thousands, while others brought only a few hundred people. This already showed their attitude. These gang leaders and hall masters had no intention of helping Snowwind Ridge at all. They had only come to watch the show. Some of them might even have the thought of taking advantage of the situation and adding insult to injury. Yu Hao shook his head slightly. It's not that they don't dare, but they don't want to. Given the strength of the major factions, if they work together, how can the Wolf Army and Goshawk Gang resist? However, they all have their own ulterior motives. They are all worried that fighting against the two bandits will weaken their strength, so no one is willing to stand out. Ka ka ka. Suddenly, a series of jarring sounds could be heard from the barrier around Snowwind Ridge, as cracks appeared on it, spreading and expanding rapidly. The Immortal Array was about to shatter. Prepare to fight to the death. Yu Hao gritted his teeth and ordered, "Rumble." At this moment, dust and smoke billowed from the ground in the distance, and a violent tremor could be felt. There was a huge army rushing towards this place. Feng Yan, Sangya, and the leaders of the major forces all looked over. The people of Feng Shuling also tried their best to look through the crowd. "It's the Twin Dragon Sect." Cries of surprise came from the crowd. From the looks of it, there are about 40,000 soldiers. Shocked, Shenfei couldn't help but ask, "Is the Twin Dragon Sect here to help us?" "Let's wait and see. It's hard to tell." Gu Wenjun took a deep breath and tried her best to stay calm. "Ko Yong Sujian, why did you two bring so many people here?" The leader of the Scorpio Gang raised his eyebrows and asked. "It's rare for two great bandits to gather together. Naturally, we have to kill to our heart's content." At the very front of the Twin Dragon Sect, a tall and sturdy man said loudly with a murderous aura. That was one of the Twin Dragon Sect, Ko Yong. The mountain master of Mystic Een Mountain, Ding Yi, said eccentrically, "Guys, I advise you guys not to get involved in this mess lest you get implicated." Behind Ko Yong, a figure caught up. Su Jian asked with an indifferent expression, "Since when did Mystic Een Mountain side with the bandits?" Ding Yi harumphed coldly with a dark expression. Suddenly, Feng Yin raised his voice. "Today it's a feud between the ferocious Wolf Army, Goshawk Sect and Feng Shuling. Fellow Taoists, please give us some face, and I'll definitely thank you heavily in the future." Ha 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 ha. Ko Yong burst into laughter and slapped in reverse. The saber on his back jumped out, and let out a series of clanging sounds as saber chi filled the air. "You're just a bandit leader. How dare you address me as a brother?" Ko Yong hollered and leaped into the air with his saber. Descending from the skies, he slashed down towards the ferocious wolf army with a bedazzling saber beam. Everyone's hearts skipped a beat. None of them expected Ko Yong of the Twin Dragon sect to be so domineering as to choose to take on two bandits head-on. Kill! Su Jian also waved his arm and pointed forward. The 40,000-strong Twin Dragon sect army swarmed forward and clashed with the 100,000-strong army of the two bandits. The moment the two armies clashed, endless blood mist burst forth. Boom! At the same time, the immortal array outside Feng Shuling could not hold on and completely shattered. Everyone in Feng Shuling was exposed to the two bandits. I've long heard of the Twin Dragon sect's methods. Since it's rare for us to meet today, let's exchange pointers. Right at this moment, Ding Yi of Mystic Yin Mountain suddenly stood out and joined forces with the Right Guardian to charge towards Ko Yong and Su Jian. I didn't expect Mystic Yin Mountain to make a move as well. The Thunderclap Hall Master frowned slightly. The Scorpio Gang's leader sneered. The Profound Yin Mountain is very close to the Twin Dragon sect. If we can kill the Twin Dragon sect here, the Profound Yin Mountain can borrow the strength of the two bandits to swallow the Twin Dragon sect and strengthen themselves. Looking at the situation, not only Feng Shuling, but Twin Dragon sect might also be wiped out today. The sect master of Mystic Light sect said. With Ding Yi and the Right Guardian of Mystic Yin Mountain holding back the Twin Dragon sect, Feng Yan, the Wolf Army's second leader, Sangya, and the Goshawk sect's deputy sect master, had a chance to escape and charge towards Feng Shuling. These were 4 rank 8 mystic immortals. And in Feng Shuling, other than Yu Hao and the Silver Giant, there was no other rank 7 mystic immortal. Yu Hao and the Silver Giant were both heavily injured and could not participate in the battle. The 4 rank 8 mystic immortals charged into the battlefield, and in the blink of an eye, Feng Shuling's army was in chaos and suffered heavy casualties. No one could stop the 4 rank 8 mystic immortals from killing. Sangya led hundreds of goshawks and constantly attacked in the sky, causing great damage to Feng Shuling and Twin Dragon sect. Although the Twin Dragon sect was also a rank 8 mystic immortal, they could only jump up to 90 feet in the sky. But the goshawks could fly hundreds of feet in the sky. It was extremely difficult to capture and tame a goshawk. Although this goshawk army did not have many people, only a few hundred, they were invincible with this move. No one in the mystic immortal realm could hurt them. Ha ha ha. Feng Yan looked at Yu Hao and the rest and laughed unscrupulously. You bastards should have died long ago. Today, not to mention the Twin Dragon sect. Even if the gods came, they would not be able to save you. Feng Shuling will be removed from the list today. Woo! Before he could finish his sentence, an ear-piercing sound of something breaking through the air came from the distant horizon. Good, good, good. Someone spoke. The first good word was still in the sky. When it came to the third good word, this voice had already appeared on the battlefield. This kind of speed was absolutely horrifying. With me here today, no one can remove Feng Shuling's name. A green figure stood in the air with a pair of enormous wings that flickered with golden light flapping behind him. His black hair fluttered, his gaze was like lightning, and his aura was monstrous. His shout was like a thunderclap that was awe-inspiring. Fuping Chinese. Chapter 1901. The arrival of this figure attracted countless gazes. It's Su Zimo. Brother Su. Ha 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 ha, Boss Su is not dead. Wind Snow Ridge was in an uproar. Yu Hao and the others were in high spirits. This is Su Zimo? I heard that this kid has the ability to kill those above his level. With his return, there will be many more variables in today's battle. I don't think so. No matter how strong this kid is, can he fight against 4 stage 8 mystic immortals? It was the first time the leaders of the various forces had seen Su Zimo, and they began to discuss. Su Zimo, you came at the right time. Ding Yi of Mystic Yin Mountain said with a murderous look. Today, you will pay with your life for my son. Su Zimo, you killed 2 leaders of my wolf army, and slaughtered tens of thousands of my brothers. Today, I will make you pay with your blood. Feng Yan also shouted. Pay with your blood. Many cultivators of the wolf army were in a killing frenzy, and they roared loudly with great momentum. Roar! Su Zimo suddenly opened his mouth, and let out an earth-shattering roar at the crowd below. It was like a sudden explosion of thunder. This was the Azure Dragon's roar, which was even more terrifying than the Dragon Phoenix's roar. It contained a supreme will and terrifying sound domain killing power. The cultivators of the Wolf Army and the Goshawk Gang who were near Su Zimo were all shocked. Some Stage 4 and Stage 5 Mystic Immortals' bodies were torn apart by this roar, and they turned into a cloud of blood mist. Bloody scars appeared on the faces of some Level 6 Mystic Immortals, and their gazes were lifeless while their expressions dimmed. They fell to the ground and perished. Even many Stage 7 Mystic Immortals could not withstand it. They were bleeding from their 7 orifices, and their expressions were mournful. They had completely lost the ability to fight. Under this roar, close to 10,000 cultivators died on the spot. Even the Goshawk Army in the air had dozens of them killed on the spot. The morale of the 100,000-strong army that had just risen was suppressed by Su Zimo's roar, and it disappeared with a bang. There was even a brief moment of silence on the battlefield. The crowd was in an uproar. What kind of sound domain secret technique is this? How could it possess such terrifying power? The Thunder Rumbling Hall's Hall Master exclaimed in shock. The Thunderclap Hall also knew a kind of sound domain secret technique, but it was far inferior to this Azure Dragon's roar. Under this roar, his mind trembled slightly, and he even had the urge to prostrate himself in worship. That doesn't make sense. The Scorpio Gang's leader frowned and muttered. It's said that this Su Zimo is only a 6th-stage Mystic Immortal. How can a sound domain secret technique be so powerful? He doesn't seem to be a Stage 6 Mystic Immortal. At this moment, the sect master of the Profound Light sect seemed to have sensed something, and his voice trembled. On the battlefield, many of the Xian Immortals who were further away from Su Zimo had managed to escape, but they were still in pain. Even Feng Yan and the other Stage 8 Mystic Immortals shuddered. They felt a slight pain in their heads and felt dizzy. How terrifying! Feng Yan and the others were secretly shocked. If they were to fight head-on, Su Zimo's sudden roar would definitely kill them on the spot. You want to kill me with just your motley crew? Su Zimo glared at Feng Yan with a burning gaze and said coldly, "Hand over your life." Before he finished speaking, the golden wings on Su Zimo's back flapped, and his speed skyrocketed. He turned into a golden light and charged towards Feng Yan. "Stop him!" Feng Yan was taken aback by Su Zimo's aura and shouted out hurriedly. Immobilization Art. Wind Summoning Art. Soul Devouring Palm. Feng Yan, the second in command of the Vicious Wolf Army, Sangya, and the second in command of the Goshawk Gang attacked at the same time. Many small techniques were unleashed. At the same time, a few cold lights pierced through the sky. When the 4 Stage 8 Mystic Immortals released their techniques, they also took out their magic treasures without holding back. In Su Zimo's Sea of Consciousness, the lotus platform of creation bloomed with rays of light. The moment the immobilization art's power descended, it was dissolved by him, and did not affect him at all. The stronger the cultivator's primordial spirit, the greater the effect of the immobilization art on the opponent. Su Zimo's primordial spirit cultivation had already reached Stage 9 Mystic Immortal. The immobilization art of a Stage 8 Mystic Immortal was completely useless against him. As for Su Zimo's golden winged rock, it was so fast that it even passed through the remaining small techniques and magic treasures. Boom! All the small techniques and magic treasures missed and collided with a loud bang. The evil wolf army's second commander, who was at the very front, was horrified. He could only watch helplessly as the golden light rushed over. He wanted to dodge, but the speed of the golden light was faster than his thoughts. Poof! Just as he was about to escape, the golden light pierced through him. A fountain of blood gushed out. The second in command of the Vicious Wolf Army let out a shrill scream. The next moment, the scream stopped abruptly. That golden light was Su Zimo's physical body. It contained a terrifying power, and pierced through the second in command of the Vicious Wolf Army. This power was enough to destroy him. Bang! The second in command of the Vicious Wolf Army's physical body exploded on the spot, and his primordial spirit was destroyed. After this person died, Feng Yan was behind him. Feng Yan saw that the situation was not good, and had already fled towards the army behind him. He knew a small technique, the invisibility art. If he could blend into the army and release the invisibility art, he would definitely be able to avoid Su Zimo's detection and escape this calamity. Su Zimo seemed to have sensed Feng Yan's intention. His body flashed, and he disappeared from the spot. When he appeared again, he was already behind Feng Yan. True Dragon's 9 flashes. It's this secret technique again. Some people who had seen Su Zimo in action in Dragon Lake City exclaimed. Back then, during the battle in Dragon Lake City, Su Zimo's many powerful techniques had already spread across Dragon Lake Star. However, the leaders of the various forces present refused to believe it. How could a mystic immortal release a technique that was similar to teleportation? It was only when they saw it with their own eyes that the leaders of the various forces realized how terrifying this movement technique was. Feng Yan felt the murderous intent behind him and was shocked. He had also heard that Su Zimo had a movement technique that was similar to teleportation. Realizing that something was wrong, he made a prompt decision and activated his primordial spirit to release a small technique. He pointed at a stage 6 mystic immortal not far away and shouted, "Form swap!" The power of the technique spread. Feng Yan suddenly disappeared from the spot and was replaced by the stage 6 mystic immortal not far away. Under the watchful eyes of the crowd, the two of them exchanged positions. This small technique did not have much killing power. However, at this critical moment, Feng Yan released the form swap and escaped from death. It could be said to be perfect as he narrowly avoided a calamity. Feng Yan was able to become the leader of the vicious wolf army for so many years, and naturally had his outstanding points. Just this alertness and reaction had already surpassed many mystic immortals of the same level. Even the many cultivators who were watching the battle were stunned when they saw this scene. It was a pity that he met Su Zimo. Just as Feng Yan used form swap and left the spot, Su Zimo's expression was cold, and his body flashed as well. He had already cultivated to the second level of the 9 true dragon flashes, and could flash twice consecutively. Chapter 1902. Feng Yan used form shift to escape. Just as he was about to release his invisibility technique to blend into the army, he suddenly felt his heart palpitate. An even stronger sense of danger shrouded him. "You can't escape." Su Zimo's voice sounded. He was right behind him and close at hand. Feng Yan's eyes widened in horror. His scalp was about to explode as he felt a chill run down his spine. His limbs turned cold. Even though he still had powerful strength, he could not release any of it at this moment. How was this possible? He had just released form shift. How could Su Zimo catch up to him in an instant and appear behind him? Bang! Feng Yan no longer had the chance to figure out the reason behind this. A sharp pain came from his mind. He even heard the sound of his skull cracking. A huge force surged into his consciousness and shattered his essence spirit. In the next moment, Feng Yan lost consciousness. There was a momentary pause on the battlefield. Feng Yan was in the middle of it and did not understand what had happened. However, bystanders saw it clearly. Right in front of countless gazes, Su Zimo's figure flashed twice consecutively and smashed Feng Yan's head with a single palm strike, killing the latter. The leader of the vicious wolf army was a peak stage 8 mystic immortal. He had been on the Dragon Abyss planet for many years and had experienced countless bloodshed. In the end, he could escape death and live until now. However, he could not escape from a top-notch movement technique like the 9 true dragon flashes. Not to mention Feng Yan, even the prodigies of the native living beings of the upper world might not be able to escape from Su Zimo's pursuit this time. The two leaders of the vicious wolf army were both dead in a few breaths' time. The tens of thousands of cultivators of the vicious wolf army were all stunned on the spot and could not react in a short period of time. Two leaders, 2 stage 8 mystic immortals, died just like that? Haha, Ko Yong laughed loudly as he fought with Ding Yi. Good kill. Song Ye's expression was solemn as he suddenly shouted, "Everyone be careful. This person is not at stage 6 mystic essence realm. He's a stage 7 mystic immortal." What? How is this possible? 30 years ago, he was only a level 6 mystic immortal. What kind of innate physique does this person have? What kind of cultivation method did he cultivate? How could his cultivation speed be so terrifying? The expressions of the cultivators changed. Duan Tianliang, Xia Qingying, and the others, who were the first to come into contact with Su Zimo, were even more shocked. When Su Zimo first arrived on the Dragon Abyss star, he was only a Tier 4 Xian immortal. Presently, only a little over 100 years had passed, yet Su Zimo had already attained the 7th rank of the mysterious immortal realm. This cultivation speed was something that even some of the top experts and successors of powerful sects, with countless cultivation resources and cultivation techniques, could not achieve. Could this kid be the reincarnation of an immortal? In the upper realm, there were some legends that once one's cultivation reached a certain level, as long as one could ensure that a strand of one's soul did not scatter and enter the cycle of reincarnation, one could be reborn. When a reincarnated immortal cultivated to a certain level, they would be able to recover the memories of their previous lives. Some immortals were reincarnated. There were even elders from their previous lives, Dao companions, or close relatives who came to receive them and let them re-enter the immortal sect. Even if he's the reincarnation of an immortal, it's impossible for him to cultivate so quickly, right? The leaders of the Scorpio sect, Thunderclap Hall, and the others were all shocked. Goshawk Army, listen to my orders, Sangya said in a deep voice. Continue to rise into the sky and increase the distance between us and this kid before attacking. This was his greatest reliance. Hundreds of cultivators rode on goshawks and circled high in the sky, looking down from above. They were almost invincible, and no one could threaten them at all. The hundreds of goshawks did not dare to be careless, and hurriedly rose into the sky. Su Zimo looked up and sneered. Sangya, do you think that the pair of golden wings behind me is just for decoration? As soon as he said that, Su Zimo flapped his golden wings and took off. Whoosh! A golden light shot into the sky. In almost the blink of an eye, Su Zimo was already hundreds of feet high in the sky, flying even higher than the hundreds of goshawks. Those were the wings of the golden-winged roc. Among the flying races, the golden-winged roc was the absolute king. Retreat! Retreat! Sangya's expression changed starkly as he shouted. Su Zimo descended from the skies and charged into the goshawk army. It was as though he was on a rampage, and no one could stop him. The massacre had already begun. Run! Many of the goshawks howled and fled in all directions. However, no matter how fast the goshawks were, they could not match the speed of the golden-winged roc, and would be caught by Su Zimo before long and killed on the spot. Namingly fire. Su Zimo channeled his essence spirit and channeled a dermic art. Suddenly, 2 balls of flames appeared in his palms. They were demonic and terrifying, emitting a terrifying aura. This time round, he did not fuse the Nanmingli fire with the 3 Dao fires. After all, it was a secret skill recorded on the bronze square tripod, and he wanted to test the power of the Nanmingli fire. Burn! Su Zimo's spirit consciousness moved, and the 2 balls of flame scattered in midair, forming a gigantic wall of fire that blocked hundreds of goshawks. Many goshawks released their divine powers and secret skills. They summoned their dermic treasures, tore their talismans and released their trump cards in an attempt to break through the wall of fire. Poof! 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 Unfortunately, be it divine powers or dermic treasures, they were incinerated when they entered the Nanmingli fire. Some of the goshawks that collided with it were burned to ashes before long. Even a single spark would ignite within the bodies of the goshawks and eventually engulf their entire bodies. It was like a flaming cage, trapping the hundreds of goshawk army soldiers within. No one could escape. Even the deputy sect master of Goshawk sect, a grade 8 mystic immortal, could not withstand the burning of the Nanmingli fire and fell from midair. Before he landed on the ground, he was already reduced to ashes. I've long heard that Su Zimo is skilled in fire Dao techniques. To think that his flames would be this terrifying. The might of that flame shouldn't be at its peak yet. Below Dragon Lake City, Su Zimo once released a fire secret skill that fused flames of different colors to increase their might several times. If a single flame is already this powerful, if he fuses a few more flames, The leaders of the factions did not dare to continue thinking about it. Those flames could definitely kill them with ease. In midair, under the illumination of the flames, Song Ye's face was flushed red and his eyes were filled with shock, fear and regret. Fellow Taoist Su, I admit defeat. Song Ye took a deep breath and grit his teeth. I wonder if you can give me a chance, exalted immortal. I'm willing to serve you faithfully. Not only did Song Ye change the way he addressed Su Zimo, he even knelt down. My army of tens of thousands will listen to the orders of the exalted immortal as well. Song Ye's heart was as clear as a mirror, and he had long understood. The two leaders of the vicious wolf army were dead, and the deputy sect master of Goshawk sect was dead. He was the only one left, and it was difficult for him to escape death alone. If he could follow Su Zimo, not only would he be able to preserve his life, he might even obtain some benefits. Although this was a loss of face, compared to his life, it was not worth mentioning. You're not worthy. Just as Song Ye was contemplating, Su Zimo's voice sounded. Although it was only 3 words, Song Ye's heart sank to the bottom. You. Song Ye raised his head and was about to speak. Su Zimo had already arrived beside him. Closing his fingers, the surrounding Nanming primordial fire also gathered and returned to his palm in an instant. Su Zimo tossed it casually. The Nanmingli fire landed on Song Ye's head. Ah! Accompanied by a tragic cry, the flames engulfed Song Ye. Chapter 1903. The crowd was shocked. It had only been half an incense's time since Su Zimo appeared. However, the 4 mystic immortals with the strongest combat strength of the ferocious wolf army and Goshawk sect were all dead. The leaders of the various factions were only Class 8 mystic immortals, and their combat strength was similar to the 4 dead Feng Yan. This meant that if Su Zimo were to attack them, they would not be able to withstand more than a few moves. The leaders of the various factions were secretly shocked with wary expressions. Although the ferocious wolf army and Goshawk sect were bloodthirsty, the army started to fall into chaos when they saw Feng Yan and the other 3 dead. Some were fighting, some were fleeing and some were at a loss. The army of tens of thousands was in a state of disunity. If those bandits were allowed to escape, they would not be a threat to Su Zimo. However, they could become a hidden danger for Feng Shuling. With a cold expression, Su Zimo conjured a sword art with both hands and released his massive spirit consciousness, slashing towards the crowd beneath him. Chi, 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 chi. The sword art in his right hand released 100,000 streams of sword chi that were blinding and white. Killing intent surged into the firmaments and the stars were shifted. Every single stream of sword chi was incomparably sharp and swept through the crowd, piercing the flesh of many bandits with ease. What was even more frightening was that the cultivators of the Goshawk sect, ferocious wolf army, Feng Shuling and Double Dragon sect were fighting on the battlefield below. Every single one of the 100,000 streams of sword chi slashed towards the bandits of the ferocious wolf army and Goshawk sect with extreme precision, and none of them were injured. Initially, Su Jian was worried that the cultivators of Double Dragon sect would be implicated by the terrifying sword art. To think that the sword chi would be able to bypass their cultivators and pierce towards the bandits, as though it had a mind of its own. What strong control! Su Jian was secretly speechless. The fact that Su Zimo was able to control 100,000 streams of sword chi with such precision meant that his essence spirit cultivation was probably above level 7 mystic essence realm. Wails filled the battlefield as blood flowed like rivers. The heaven-slaying sword art displayed its killing intent to the fullest. The tens of thousands of bandits finally couldn't hold on any longer. They completely collapsed and fled in all directions. However, under the pursuit of the people from Feng Shuling and the Twin Dragon sect, as well as the encirclement of the heavenly slaying sword chi, not many people could leave this place alive. Blood mist filled the air, and severed limbs flew everywhere. The cultivators from the Scorpio sect and the other major forces were dumbfounded. Ever since they ascended to the upper realm and descended to the Dragon Abyss planet for so many years, they had never seen such a bloody battle with their own eyes. The lives of tens of thousands of soldiers were like grass in the hands of that green-robed cultivator. With a wave of his sword finger, they all broke apart. Roar! Roar! Su Zimo's left hand slashed out a dragon snake. The divine dragon descended from the sky, and the soaring serpent emerged from the ground, charging towards Ding Yi and the right protector of Profound Yi Mountain. Ding Ye's expression changed greatly. In fact, when Feng Yan and Song Ye died one after another, he already had thoughts of retreating. But he and the right protector were entangled by Ko Yong and Su Jian, and couldn't break free for a while. To think that Su Zimo's counterattack would be so fast, fierce and domineering, that he didn't even have a chance to react. The right protector was already fighting with trepidation to begin with. Even without the descent of the dragon snake of the earth-slaying sword art, he wouldn't have been able to last long against Su Jian. Now that the dragon snake had arrived, the right protector of Profound Yi Mountain let out a tragic cry, and was instantly minced by the dragon snake, without a corpse left. Su Zimo, you! Ding Yi opened his mouth wanting to say something. Su Zimo's figure drifted, and he had already arrived in front of him, glaring at Ding Yi coldly with a sharp gaze. Ding Ye's heart turned cold when he was glared at by those two gazes. Su Zimo merely stood opposite him motionlessly and looked at him calmly, exuding an irresistible might and will. An illusion seemed to have appeared before Ding Ye's eyes. Behind Su Zimo, he saw countless corpses and seas of blood. Instantly his mind broke down. Ko Yong seized the opportunity and slashed down. A gigantic head flew into the air, and a fountain of blood gushed out. Ding Ye's head spun a few times in midair, before it was split into pieces by Ko Yong's next attack, and his essence spirit was destroyed. The 500 cultivators that Ding Yi brought with him saw that, but none of them dared to step forward. Brother Su, you're truly capable. Ko Yong could not help but praise. Su Jian cupped his fists at Su Zimo as well and smiled. I often hear Wanner mention you. Initially, I didn't believe it. Now that I've met you today, I know that she's not lying. The Wanner that Su Jian was referring to was Su Wan. Su Zimo nodded to the twin dragons with a relaxed expression. Thanks. Thereafter, he nodded slightly to Su Wan. Among the 7 factions, only Twin Dragon's sect was willing to stand out and help win Snow Ridge. Su Wan must have something to do with that. At this point of the battle, there was no longer any suspense. The two bandits were completely defeated. Against the pursuit of the cultivators of Twin Dragon's sect in Wind Snow Ridge, there were very few who could escape alive. Su Zimo arrived beside Yu Hao and the Silver Giant, and took out some healing elixirs from his storage bag for them to consume. There was no longer a need for him to make a move in this battle. Boss Su, I knew that you weren't dead. Hee. Duan Tianyang's cultivation was not high, and did not join the battle. At that moment, he ran over with a fawning smile. Woof woof, Goldie barked twice at the side as well. Brother Su, the abnormality 30 years ago caused a huge commotion, Yu Hao said. It's said that many Earth Immortals and Heavenly Immortals died in the abyss. After you left, there was no news of you at all. We all thought that you had, Su Zimo said. Indeed, the trip to the abyss was a narrow escape. It was a coincidence that I managed to survive in the end. Thankfully, I returned in time. Due to the existence of the Immortal Formation, most of Wind Snow Ridge was not destroyed too badly. The pursuit continued until night fell before the cultivators returned one after another. The main hall of Wind Snow Ridge was brightly lit. The leaders of the various factions were not in a hurry to leave. They were waiting for the battle to end before paying their respects. They knew that as long as Su Zimo was around, no one on Dragon Abyss Planet would be able to challenge Wind Snow Ridge. Meanwhile, Su Zimo was only a 7th-stage mystic immortal with unlimited potential. Even if they could not form an alliance with such an expert, they could not afford to offend him either. The leaders of the factions even gathered some gifts at the last minute, such as core solidifying pills, and gave them to Wind Snow Ridge to express their goodwill. Yu Hao was initially hesitant. However, Su Zimo did not reject the gifts and accepted them all. He then sent the leaders of the factions away, and did not even invite them to the banquet. These leaders were people who went with the flow. Thus there was no need for Su Zimo to befriend them. Su Zimo was only interested in the Twin Dragons sect. At the banquet, Su Zimo suggested that the twin dragons sect form an alliance with Wind Snow Ridge. Su Zimo had his own reasons for doing so. The twin dragon sect could not have asked for more. Whether it was the twin dragon sect or Yu Hao, they were all forthright people who regretted not having met earlier. They drank merrily until dawn and did not feel tired at all. Su Zimo left quietly and stood at the entrance of the main hall, looking into the distance. No one knew what he was thinking. Xia Qingying was meticulous. She vaguely sensed something and followed him out. Chapter 1904. Fellow Taoist Su Yu. Xia Qingying came behind Su Zimo, wanting to say something but hesitated. Su Zimo said softly, "I'm leaving." Xia Qingying was silent. She had already guessed it. During the banquet just now, Su Zimo took the initiative to make Feng Shuling form an alliance with the twin dragon sect. In fact, it was to let Feng Shuling have one more ally and leave a way out for Feng Shuling. However, now that she heard Su Zimo say it personally, a wave of complicated emotions surged in her heart. There was some reluctance and some realization. Actually, more than 100 years ago, when Xia Qingying knew that Su Zimo had passed the fourth heavenly tribulation and ascended to the upper realm, she knew that Su Zimo would definitely leave this place and leave Dragon Abyss Planet. However, she did not expect this day to come so quickly. In just over 100 years, this person had already cultivated to the 7th stage Mystic Immortal. This kind of cultivation speed was simply unimaginable. What was even more terrifying was that this person's position on Dragon Abyss Planet was already very important, and his reputation was also unmatched. The leaders of the various major forces had to take the initiative to befriend him. This person was like a divine dragon, but it was just a coincidence that he was stranded in the shallows. One day, he would head to an even more magnificent sea. "When do you plan to leave?" Xia Qingying asked. Su Zimo pondered and said, "There's no hurry. I'll leave after I teach you all the spells of this immortal formation." "Okay." Xia Qingying nodded in agreement. Su Zimo thought for a while and said, "Also, don't tell anyone that I'm leaving." Xia Qingying was slightly startled, but she quickly understood. As long as the cultivators outside thought that Su Zimo was still in Feng Shuling, no one would dare to have any ideas about Feng Shuling. The Battle of Dragon Abyss City, the Battle of Zuyanggu, and the elimination of 2 bandits. These 3 battles were enough to intimidate everyone. As long as there was enough time, when Yu Hao and the others grew up, even without Su Zimo, Feng Shuling would be able to stand shoulder to shoulder with the major forces. At this moment, Duan Tianliang and De Huang finished cleaning up the battlefield and ran over happily. "Boss Su, the harvest this time is too big." Duan Tianliang took out a storage bag and handed it to Su Zimo, and said excitedly, "The storage bags of 100,000 bandits, including Feng Yan and the others, are all inside." Su Zimo took the storage bag and quickly checked. The 2 bandits plundered everywhere, and there were indeed quite a number of items in their storage bags. However, there was almost nothing that was useful to Su Zimo. There were almost no other treasures to be found to be there to be treasures. However, Su Zimo collected all the essence spirit stones in the storage bags. There were more than 400 of them. Su to Su Zimo was to Tianliang, to leave the to take to Tianliang. After pondering for a moment, Su Zimo took out another 100 essence spirit stones and handed them to Xia Qingying. To activate, to operate, to activate, to immortal, to operate, to use, to run, to use, to xiao. Leaving these 100 elemental spirit stones for Feng Shuling was also a precaution. In the following period of time, Su Zimo stayed in Feng Shuling and taught Xia Qingying and Yu Hao the runes, control, and operation of the immortal formation. Su Zimo had consumed dozens of spirit stones to break through to stage 7 Mystic Immortal. The remaining 300 spirit stones were not enough for him to break through to stage 8 Mystic Immortal. There were no spirit stones mines on Dragon Abyss Planet, so it was almost impossible to obtain spirit stones. Only by leaving Dragon Abyss Planet and heading to the wider Azure Cloud County would one have the chance to obtain more spirit stones. The spirit chi there was also denser, which could speed up one's cultivation. Moreover, Meiji was an outstanding talent among the heaven immortals. If she was buried here, it would inevitably attract other experts from the same sect. The longer he stayed on Dragon Abyss Planet, the easier it would be for other unforeseen events to occur. A year later, Xia Qingying and Yu Hao had more or less mastered the immortal formation, and all that was left was to practice and comprehend it. Although Su Zimo had never mentioned it in the past year, Duan Tianliang, De Huang, and the rest had already vaguely sensed something. No one pointed it out. The day before Su Zimo left, he let De Huang return to his human form. On the second night, he left quietly without informing anyone. More than 100 years ago, he came to Dragon Abyss Planet alone. Now, he had also left by himself. He did not owe Feng Shuling anything. All these years, he had saved Feng Shuling from the brink of death several times, and left behind many contingencies, giving Feng Shuling enough time to grow. The karma between him and Feng Shuling had already been severed, and there was no longer any burden in his heart. At this moment Su Zimo, who was in mid-air, seemed to have sensed something. He suddenly stopped and turned around. He saw a few figures standing at Feng Shuling's door, looking at him from afar. Even though it was dark, even though they were 100 miles apart, Su Zimo could still see the faces of these people clearly. Yu Hao, Xia Qingying, Shen Fei, Gu Wenjun, Duan Tianliang. These people still came out to send him off. A warm current flowed through Su Zimo's heart. After looking at everyone for a long time, he took a deep breath and turned around. With his back facing everyone, he waved and disappeared into the night. I wonder if I'll have the chance to see Boss Su again in the future. Duan Tianliang sighed with a lonely expression. Yu Hao said, Brother Su does not belong here after all. The distance between us and him is too far. Perhaps it will only get further in the future. Shen Fei smiled and pretended to be relaxed as he said, That's good too. If there comes a day when fellow Taoist Su makes a name for himself in the Cyan Cloud County, perhaps we can brag about our experiences with him over the years. Su Zimo suppressed the melancholy of parting in his heart. He composed himself and sped towards Dragon Abyss City. His cultivation was not enough. If he wanted to leave Dragon Abyss Planet and head to Azure Cloud County, he could only use the teleportation formation in Dragon Abyss City. There were two ways to use the teleportation formation to leave. The first was to cultivate to Stage 9 Mystic Immortal. The second was to pay 100 Elemental Spirit Stones. Although it was slightly painful to pay 100 Elemental Spirit Stones. But so long as he was able to safely arrive at Azure Cloud County, he would have more opportunities to obtain even more Elemental Spirit Stones. Half a month later, Su Zimo arrived at Dragon Abyss City. After not seeing each other for a few tens of years, Dragon Abyss City had not changed much. Instead, it was the few guards at the entrance that were first stunned when they saw Su Zimo, and then their expressions changed greatly. More than half of the cultivators in the city had witnessed the battle at Dragon Abyss City with their own eyes. Not to mention, Su Zimo's reputation had risen greatly in these past few years. 1 year ago, he annihilated 2 great bandits, and he was like the sun in the midday sky. Who didn't know of him? Many guards had fearful expressions when they saw Su Zimo arrive, and they even forgot to collect Su Zimo's entrance fee. Su Zimo smiled lightly and took out 1,000 origin condensing pills. Then he stuffed it into the hands of a guard and said, Excuse me, command token. This guard subconsciously took 2 steps back with a vigilant gaze, and he paused for a moment before tossing a command token back to Su Zimo. Su Zimo received the command token. For the sake of avoiding unnecessary trouble, he directly headed towards the city lord's estate and prepared to pay the elemental spirit stones before leaving immediately. He'd incurred enmity with Lu Tong of Dragon Abyss City. If Lu Tong were to know that he'd once again entered the city, it was extremely likely that some unforeseen events would occur. Reading website, M. Chapter 1905. Not long after Su Zimo entered the city, numerous guards reacted. A guard hurriedly withdrew a transmission talisman from his storage pouch and wrote a sentence on it before casually tossing it out. The talisman transformed into a flowing light and vanished. After Su Zimo entered the city, many people recognized him, and it caused a wave of commotion. He disregarded the astonished gazes of everyone and dashed forward swiftly. And it wasn't long before he'd already arrived at the city lord's estate. There were 10 guards on both sides of the entrance of the city lord's estate, and it was heavily guarded. Su Zimo walked forward and cupped his fists towards a tall and thin guard. I want to borrow the teleportation formation to leave Dragon Lake Star and head to Azure Cloud County. These guards of the city lord's estate guarded this place all year round and practically never left. When Su Zimo fought outside Dragon Lake City all those years ago, these people didn't go to the city wall to watch the battle, so they didn't recognize Su Zimo. The tall and thin guard sized up Su Zimo and couldn't help but laugh coldly when he saw the latter was only a level 7 mystic immortal. If you want to borrow the teleportation formation, you have to pay 100 elemental spirit stones. Can you afford it? As far as he was concerned, not to mention this green-clothed scholar, even the various commanders of Dragon Lake City might not be able to take out 100 elemental spirit stones. Su Zimo didn't argue with him. He withdrew a storage pouch that he'd prepared since long ago and opened it to reveal the 100 elemental spirit stones within. The guards swept their gazes and saw it clearly, and they revealed expressions of surprise. This inconspicuous level 7 mystic immortal, before them, was actually able to casually take out 100 elemental spirit stones. Greed flashed within the eyes of the tall and thin guard. He said with an expressionless face, "Follow me." Under the burning gazes of a few people, Su Zimo had a calm expression as he followed the tall and thin guard into the city lord's estate. The tall and thin guard led the way, and Su Zimo followed closely behind. After walking for a while, the tall and thin guard suddenly turned around, and his gaze was like a torch as he asked loudly, "Speak. Where did you get these 100 elemental spirit stones?" If it were anyone else, they would feel a little uneasy and nervous after entering the city lord's mansion. After all, this city governor's estate was considered to be the most respected place in the entire Dragon Lake Star, and ordinary people utterly didn't have the chance to come into contact with it. In this kind of situation, being suddenly frightened by this tall and thin guard like this and being caught off guard, he would definitely turn pale with fright and panic in his heart. Once he showed his cowardice and was questioned by the lanky guard, he would most likely not dare to hide anything. However, when the lanky guard suddenly stopped and was about to turn around, Su Zimo seemed to have sensed it and stopped as well. The tall and thin guard's move had no effect on Su Zimo. Su Zimo only calmly looked at the tall and thin guard. He said, "By a lucky chance, I obtained several dozen spirit essence stones. The rest are the 100 spirit essence stones that I've accumulated over the years." Looking at the calm and composed Su Zimo, the tall and thin guard was slightly disappointed. "Where did you get these dozens of elemental spirit stones?" The tall and thin guard continued to ask. "That abyss," Su Zimo replied. "Numerous earth immortals and heaven immortals were buried in that abyss." Even if the tall and thin guard didn't believe it, he didn't dare to investigate. When the tall and thin guard saw Su Zimo's calm expression and flawless answer, even if he continued to ask, he was afraid that he wouldn't be able to get anything out of him. "Give me the 100 spirit essence stones." The tall and thin guard stretched out his palm and spoke with a firm tone. Su Zimo slightly raised his brows and asked in return, "Where's the teleportation array?" The tall and thin guard pointed in a direction and said, "Follow this path and walk straight. You'll see the teleportation array in about 10 minutes. Hurry up, give me the spirit essence stones." The tall and thin guard was slightly impatient and urged again. Su Zimo still didn't move and asked again, "If I give you the spirit essence stones and go to the teleportation array, I'll be able to leave this place immediately?" "Humph." The tall and thin guard couldn't help but sneer and ridicule. "What a fantasy. Do you think that the teleportation array of Dragon Lake Star is only activated for you alone? Who do you think you are?" Facing the tall and thin guard's ridicule, Su Zimo wasn't annoyed. This was the city lord's residence, and he didn't want to complicate matters. "What do you mean?" Su Zimo asked. The tall and thin guard said, "The teleportation array will only be activated once a year at a fixed time. It's only been 2 months since the last time it was activated. During this period, If you want to activate the teleportation array again, you'll have to gather 10 people. Su Zimo frowned. Looking at the tall and thin guard's eyes, he shouldn't be lying. However, it was impossible to gather 10 cultivators with 100 spirit essence stones in a short period of time. In other words, if he wanted to leave Dragon Lake Star, he would have to wait for at least 10 months. Under normal circumstances, 10 months would pass in the blink of an eye, and it wouldn't be a big deal. However, there was a high chance that Lu Tong had already found out about his whereabouts. The longer he stayed, the easier it was for changes to occur. Give me the spirit essence stones and come back after 10 months. The tall and thin guard's tone became increasingly impatient. Su Zimo took out his storage bag and was about to hand it over to the tall and thin guard when he suddenly retracted it and asked with a smile that wasn't a smile, "If I give you the spirit essence stones, and you suddenly don't admit it after 10 months? Insolent." The tall and thin guard's face changed and revealed killing intent. He indeed had such a plan. Now that it was suddenly exposed by Su Zimo, he couldn't help but fly into a rage out of humiliation, and had the intention to kill. When Su Zimo saw the tall and thin guard's reaction, it confirmed his conjecture even more. He put away the storage bag and said indifferently, "Since that's the case, I'll come back after 10 months. At that time, I'll naturally hand over the spirit essence stones with both hands." After saying that, Su Zimo turned around and left, preparing to leave Dragon Lake City first and lie low for the time being. "Without my permission, don't even think about leaving." The tall and thin guard's expression was gloomy and murderous. He took a step forward and suddenly attacked, slapping down towards the top of Su Zimo's head. This time, the tall and thin guard didn't hold back, and actually wanted to slap Su Zimo to death with a single palm strike. Su Zimo's eyes narrowed, and killing intent arose within him as well. This tall and thin guard was only a 7th-level mysterious immortal. He had 100 methods to instantly annihilate this guard. But, if he killed this person, it would surely cause a stir in the city governor's estate in Dragon Lake City. At that time, the city governor's estate would strengthen its guard, and it would be impossible for him to use the teleportation formation to leave. When he thought up to here, Su Zimo's figure flashed and easily avoided the tall and thin guard's palm strike. Then he turned around and looked over with an icy cold gaze. "As a guard of the city governor's estate, you intend to openly seize it?" Su Zimo spoke slowly. The tall and thin guard gritted his teeth and sneered. "I want to openly seize it. What can you do to me? You lowly servant. It's your honor that I'm willing to take your spirit essence stones." Clang! The tall and thin guard drew out a long saber that flickered with bright light and said with a cold voice, "Since you don't know what's good for you, then I'll send you to see the king of hell today." As he spoke, the vital energy and blood within the tall and thin guard's body rose as he merged with his saber and descended from the sky, tearing through the sky as he slashed down with the force of a thunderbolt. Su Zimo's face sank and cold lights flickered within his eyes. He was already prepared to make a move and leave this place immediately after he killed this person, then flee Dragon Lake City and conceal himself before making further plans. With his current ability, even if the city governor of Dragon Lake City personally made a move, the city governor would be unable to stop him. Philippine Chinese. Chapter 1906. Su Zimo's expression was calm as he looked at the tall skinny guard, who was descending from the skies with a menacing aura. The tall skinny guard sneered internally. When he saw that Su Zimo was a Class 7 mystic immortal, he did not dare to be careless. He did not hold back at all, and released his full strength with that slash. To think that the Class 7 mystic immortal seemed to have been scared silly, and gave up on resisting. The tall skinny guard watched as the saber was about to slice the green-robed scholar into two. However, the latter suddenly attacked. He didn't make any complicated movements, nor did he use any secret techniques or divine abilities. He simply reached out his hand and grabbed the long saber. "A mantis trying to stop a chariot." The tall skinny guard hollered and channeled his blood chi, causing his saber to shine brightly. Piak! When the saber landed on the green-robed scholar's palm, There was no blood splattering as the tall skinny guard had imagined. Not only that, his supreme-grade profound-grade saber was unable to leave a single mark on this seemingly fair and delicate palm. To be precise, there was not even a single mark. All the strength he had unleashed was like a stone sinking into the sea, disappearing without a trace. How was that possible? The tall skinny guard's eyes widened in disbelief as he froze on the spot. Right then, Su Zimo closed his fingers and gripped the tall skinny guard's saber, exerting strength in his palm. Snap! There was a crisp sound. The tall skinny guard shuddered, and his pupils constricted to the size of needles. The saber in his hand was snapped by Su Zimo single-handedly. Psst! The tall skinny guard was horrified as he looked at Su Zimo, as though he was looking at a ghost. That was a method that was beyond his understanding. His saber was a supreme-grade mystic Dharma treasure, and could only be snapped by a connate mystic Dharma treasure. However, there were no traces of Dharma treasures on this person's palm. Now that Su Zimo was at level 7 mystic essence realm, Qinglian's true body was growing continuously as well. If he were to use his full strength, Qinglian's true body could take on connate mystic Dharma treasures head-on and naturally destroy the saber with ease. The tall and skinny guard froze in place. Su Zimo's attack did not stop. He broke the long saber and held half of the saber in his hand. He took a step forward and slammed this half of the saber into the tall and thin guard's face. Poochie! The blade pierced through his head, piercing through his sea of consciousness. Su Zimo, how dare you! At this moment, a stern shout came from not far away. Su Zimo! Are you Su Zimo? The skinny guard's essence spirit was about to dissipate. Before he died, he heard that name and finally realized who the green-robed cultivator before him was. Unfortunately, when he realized this, it was already too late. Su Zimo slowly turned around and looked over. Not far away, a few hundred Dragon Lake City guards were dashing over swiftly with surging killing intent, and the person in the lead was precisely the commander that had incurred enmity with him, Lu Tong. Su Zimo spread out his divine sense and swept it over Lu Tong. He couldn't help but frown slightly. A 9th-level mysterious immortal. All those years ago, Lu Tong had used a secret technique to pursue him, yet returned without success, and even injured his vitality. Shenshi didn't know what fortuitous encounter this person obtained, but he actually recovered from his injuries within a few tens of years, and even stepped into the 9th level of the mysterious origin realm. Surround him. Lu Tong swiftly gave the order and said in a low voice, "Activate the grand formation of the City Lord's estate. We absolutely can't allow this kid to escape this place." The few hundred city guards swiftly spread out and surrounded Su Zimo at the center. Every single one of them withdrew their magic treasures with vigilant expressions, and they were prepared to make a move at any moment. At the same time, a blue-colored barrier stretched out from the walls of the City Lord's estate, and it enveloped the entire City Lord's estate tightly. A grand formation was set up in the surroundings of the City Lord's estate. Lu Tong's actions were obviously because he was worried that Su Zimo would withdraw the golden-winged rock and soar into the sky to flee Dragon Lake City. Only after he finished doing all this did Lu Tong walk over and stop before Su Zimo, and then he sneered lightly. "Su Zimo, I was just about to go look for you, but I never imagined that you would deliver yourself to me. Do you think you can stop me with just these few people?" Su Zimo's expression was indifferent as he replied with a question. "Ha ha ha ha." Lu Tong laughed loudly. "You're really at death's door, yet you still don't know it. You still dare to kill in the City Lord's estate. You won't be able to escape today even if you grow wings." Lu Tong withdrew his saber from his storage pouch and stared fixedly at Su Zimo with surging killing intent. So long as he gave the order, a great battle would erupt. "All of you stay your hands." Right at this moment, a berating voice sounded out from the depths of the City Lord's estate, and the voice was slightly immature, seeming to be young. Su Zimo frowned and his expression was strange. He actually felt this voice to be slightly familiar, as if he'd heard it somewhere before. Su Zimo looked over in the direction of the voice. A young man walked over from not far away. At the 6th level of the Mystic Essence realm, he already revealed a dignified bearing as he walked despite his young age. It's him. Su Zimo was slightly stunned. This young man was the person he accidentally saved in the black fog in the abyss back then, Su Xiaotian. Mystic immortals had a lifespan of 100,000 years. Therefore, Su Xiaotian still had the appearance of a young man after dozens of years, and was not much different from before. Greetings, little young master. When the hundreds of guards saw Su Xiaotian, they actually put down their dermic treasures and cupped their fists in greeting. Su Zimo's heart skipped a beat. By the looks of it, Su Xiaotian's status in the city lord's estate was not low. Back then, Su Xiaotian wore a jade pendant on his waist. It was precisely with that jade pendant that he was able to survive in the black fog for a long time, before he finally met Su Zimo. A cultivator who could possess a jade pendant treasure like that naturally had an extraordinary background. From the way the guards addressed him, there was an extremely high chance that Su Xiaotian was the child of Dragon Lake City's city lord. Su Zimo relaxed and was prepared to wait and see. It would naturally be best if the current situation could be resolved without a huge battle. If he really started a massacre in the city lord's estate, even if he escaped to Azure Cloud County in the future, he would be hunted down by the immortal army of the Dajin Celestial Nation, and would never have a day of peace. Xiaotian, what are you doing here? Lu Tong frowned. Su Xiaotian bowed to Lu Tong like a junior and said, Uncle Lu, I saw that the city lord's estate's array was suddenly activated, so I came over to take a look. What are you guys doing? Why are you at daggers drawn? Don't bother about this, I'll handle it. Lu Tong waved his hand. Su Xiaotian glanced at Su Zimo and gave the latter a comforting look. He then turned to look at Lu Tong and said firmly, Uncle Lu, you can't touch this person. Lu Tong's expression changed and he berated. What did you say? This person killed someone in the city lord's estate, and he even killed the guards of the Dajin Celestial Nation. He deserves to die 1,000 times over. How dare you say that I can't touch him? You're still young, hurry up and back off. Don't meddle in this matter. Lu Tong's tone became sterner. However, Su Xiaotian still stood in front of Su Zimo and did not budge at all. He said in a deep voice, Uncle Lu, this person saved my life before. Humph. Lu Tong's face turned completely gloomy. He said coldly, just because he saved your life, he can kill the guards of the Dajin Celestial Nation at will. Not to mention you. Even your father can't protect him in this matter. The aura emitted from Lu Tong's body became increasingly fierce and suppressed towards Su Xiaotian. After all, Su Xiaotian was only a stage 6 mystic immortal. Under this aura, his face turned pale, and he could not hold on any longer. However, he still looked stubborn and refused to retreat. He clenched his fists and argued, Uncle Lu, there might be something hidden in this. Get lost. Lu Tong interrupted him directly. His gaze was cold as he said coldly, If you dare to stop me again, I'll suppress you too. Chapter 1907. Who do you want to suppress? Right at this moment, an icy cold voice sounded out of thin air. Nearby, a middle-aged man was walking over with a cold expression, bright eyes, and a trace of dignity between his brows. City Governor. All the guards of Dragon Lake City hurriedly bowed when they saw this person. Father. Su Xiaotian had a delighted expression when he saw this person, and he called out, Dragon Lake City's Governor Su Shi. Su Zimo's gaze moved around Su Shi and Lu Tong, as he compared them in his heart. Even though both of them were 9th-level mysterious immortals, Su Shi's imposing aura obviously suppressed Lu Tong. Lu Tong seemed to be unable to match Su Shi's gaze, and he lowered his head slightly while concealing his gloomy expression as he cupped his hands and said, I was anxious for a moment, and wanted to kill the villain, so my words were slightly intense. I hope City Governor can forgive me. Su Xiaotian's pitch-black eyes spun, as he hurriedly sent a voice transmission to Su Shi. Father, he's Su Zimo, the person that saved me in the abyss all those years ago. Su Shi's expression remained unchanged, and he didn't even spare a glance at Su Zimo, and he only looked at Lu Tong as he asked, Commander Lu, who's the villain you spoke of? It's him. Lu Tong stretched out his hand and pointed at Su Zimo as he said with a low voice, Even though I have some personal enmity with this person, I won't use my position to avenge a personal grudge. But just now, this person has killed the guards of the city governor's estate, and I saw it with my own 2 eyes. The nearby guards nodded and chimed in. We saw it as well. Sushar glanced at the fallen corpse and didn't say anything, and he still had an expressionless face. Little Tian just now said that this person saved him before. But even then, this person still can't escape the death penalty for killing someone within the city governor's estate. Lu Tong's expression was furious as he said loudly, "Killing an immortal soldier of my Darjin Empire is provoking the dignity of the Darjin Empire, and it's an unforgivable crime." Exactly. All right, it should be like this. Lu Tong's words were spoken resolutely and powerfully, and it instantly drew the agreement of many Dragon Lake City guards. Lu Tong's eyes flashed with an imperceptible smugness. He cupped his hands again and looked at Sushar meaningfully. He smiled and asked, "This is no small matter. I believe that the city lord will not be biased, right?" Su Zimo frowned. Although Lu Tong's last sentence was respectful, it seemed to be overstepping his boundaries and even revealed a trace of aggressiveness. Sushar was still expressionless. No one could tell if he was happy or angry. Su Zimo's gaze lingered on Sushar and Lu Tong deep in thought. The city lord's mansion fell into silence, and the atmosphere became somewhat oppressive. Su Zimo, on the other hand, looked relaxed, as if the matter in front of him had nothing to do with him. "Father, I believe there must be some misunderstanding," Su Xiaotian said anxiously when he saw that the situation was not right. "Is there a misunderstanding?" Sushar finally opened his mouth and asked. "This?" Su Xiaotian was speechless. Sushar's gaze turned to look at the nearby Su Zimo and said slowly, "If you killed my soldiers for no reason, then you indeed deserve death." Su Zimo's heart moved as he heard the meaning behind Sushar's words. He cupped his fists and said, "I was truly forced to injure them." Subsequently, Su Zimo recounted the scene that happened just now. These were all facts, and he had no need to conceal them. Lu Tong frowned deeply when he heard. "Father, look, I told you I don't blame Big Brother Su," Su Xiaotian said with a smile. After he finished speaking, he even specially raised his leg and kicked the tall and thin guard's corpse and berated, "You've really lost face for our Dragon Lake City and lost face for the Dajin Empire." Lu Tong naturally refused to give up and said in a low voice, "So what if the soldiers of my Dajin Empire seized his origin spirit stones? They don't deserve death. He's only a lowly servant." Sushar's gaze swept over as his eyes narrowed slightly, and he said in an icy cold tone, "Commander Lu, I also ascended from the lower dimensions. Could it be that I'm also a lowly servant in your eyes? This subordinate dares not." Lu Tong lowered his head slightly and said, although he said he didn't dare, his expression didn't have the slightest bit of fear, and it was instead slightly disdainful. Su Zimo looked at this scene and pondered. Although the confrontation between Sushar and Lu Tong was short, it revealed a lot of information. The city lord of Dragon Lake City was also someone that ascended from the lower dimensions, and Lu Tong obviously knew this. Just now, although what he said was targeted at Su Zimo, it was more likely to be scolding him indirectly. Sushar heard it, and that was why he retaliated. But the strange thing was that Sushar didn't really punish Lu Tong for his repeated offense. Su Zimo vaguely felt that after Lu Tong advanced to the 9th stage of the mystic immortal realm, it was extremely likely that he would challenge Sushar for the position of city lord. Perhaps the two of them already had a tacit understanding and were secretly wrestling with each other. But because of the incident today and his unintentional intrusion, a head-on conflict had arisen between the two of them. Sushar looked around the surroundings and said slowly, "As a soldier of my Dajin immortal kingdom, you actually openly seized the origin spirit stones of another in Dragon Lake City. How is your actions different from those bandits outside? If I knew about this, I would personally kill him as a warning to others." These words were spoken extremely heavily, and the meaning behind his words was that the tall and thin guard deserved death. "Disperse." Sushar lightly waved his hand before turning around and leaving. Su Xiaotian secretly tugged on Su Zimo's sleeve and sent a voice transmission. "Big Brother Su, follow me." As he spoke, Su Xiaotian brought along Su Zimo and chased after Su Shi. Lu Tong's expression was gloomy, and he didn't speak a single word. The few hundred guards in the surroundings glanced at each other and didn't stop Su Xiaotian. These guards were able to sense the subtle changes that had occurred between Lu Tong and Su Shi. But no matter what, the current city lord was still Su Shi. No one was an idiot and wouldn't be the first to stand out. Lu Tong could only watch on helplessly as Su Zimo gradually walked further and further away before vanishing from his line of sight. But in next to no time, Lu Tong seemed to have thought of something and laughed coldly. On the other side, Su Zimo and Su Xiaotian followed behind Su Shi and conversed in low voices. Not long after, a large hall appeared before them. It was piled up with limestone, and it was dignified and solemn. Su Shi directly walked in and sat on the city lord's seat at the center of the hall, before looking down at Su Zimo, who had entered the hall. Just now, Su Shi had appeared and didn't even look Su Zimo in the eye. Only now did he start to carefully examine Su Zimo. His gaze was slightly frightening, as if he wanted to clearly see through the latter. Su Shi stared at Su Zimo for a long time, and noticed that even with his experience, he was completely unable to see through this seemingly weak scholar before him. The more it was like this, the more suspicious he was. In these past few years, a genius had appeared on Dragon Lake Star, and he'd naturally heard of it. Moreover, this person had even saved little Tion before. Could there be some conspiracy behind this? What secrets does this person have? Does this person have any other intentions? If he didn't have this cautiousness, Su Shi would have died countless times, and it would be impossible for him to stand out from the numerous people that ascended from the lower dimensions and ascend to the position of City Lord of Dragon Lake City step by step, even though he was the City Lord of a remote star. But with the identity of ascending from the lower dimensions, there probably wasn't a second person in the entire Azure Cloud County, or even the Dajin Immortal Kingdom, that could reach this position. Chapter 1908. When faced with the scrutinizing gaze of this person with the highest authority and status on Dragon Lake Star, Su Zimo's expression was calm, and he only cupped his hands and said, "Thank you, City Lord, for lending a hand." No matter if it was for the sake of deterring Lu Tong, or for some other reason, Su Shi had stood out and blocked off trouble for him after all. If it wasn't for Su Shi, then even if he was able to escape from the slaughter in Dragon Lake City, there would be endless trouble in the future and endless future troubles. Su Zimo. Su Shi nodded slowly and said, "I've heard of you since long ago. During these past few years, you've caused quite a commotion on Dragon Lake Star." Su Zimo didn't discern Su Shi's meaning and went silent. Su Shi didn't continue discussing this matter as well, and he suddenly changed the topic. "I heard that your natural talent is extremely strong, your combat strength is peerless, and you're able to surmount levels to kill opponents. You were only a 5th-rank mysterious immortal that day, yet you were able to kill a 7th-rank mysterious immortal." "I was just lucky," Su Zimo said. Su Shi stared at Su Zimo with a brilliant gaze as he said faintly, "If it's deduced like this, then you're a 7th-rank mysterious immortal now. Doesn't that mean you possess the combat strength to kill me?" This sentence revealed a trace of heart-wrenching meaning. It gave others the feeling that if Su Zimo's answer wasn't right, then Su Shi would suddenly make a move and kill the threat that was Su Zimo in advance. Su Xiaotian felt that the atmosphere was off and was restless, and he couldn't help but say, "Father, Big Brother Su is my savior. How could he make a move to harm you? Don't keep a straight face, it's so scary." "City Lord, you're joking, I wouldn't dare." Su Zimo spoke indifferently. He only said he wouldn't dare, yet didn't say he couldn't. Su Shi was naturally able to discern the minute difference within. But he didn't get angry, and he instead roared with laughter. Good. Su Zimo, you really have courage, I like it. You've saved Xiaotian, and possess such natural talent and combat strength. Why don't you stay in Dragon Lake City and help me? Don't worry, your status in Dragon Lake City will be comparable to the other commanders, and I'll provide you with a considerable amount of origin condensation pills to cultivate." Su Xiaotian was overjoyed and hurriedly said, "Big Brother Su, quickly agree. You can stay and accompany Xiaotian. We can cultivate together. To be on the same level as a commander, and even provide origin condensing pills. This could be considered an extremely sincere invitation. However, if Su Zimo wanted to cultivate quickly, what he needed was elemental spirit stones. The soul solidifying pill was not very attractive to him. As for the position of commander, Su Zimo wasn't interested in it. After Lu Tong became a rank 9 mystic immortal, it was extremely likely that a battle for the position of city lord would erupt between him and Su Shi in the future. If he stayed behind to help Su Shi, he would definitely be drawn into this battle. Su Zimo did not have the energy and mind to get involved in this kind of power struggle. Su Zimo pondered for a moment before saying, I'm indebted to the city lord for thinking so highly of me. However, my mind isn't here, and I still want to leave Dragon Abyss Planet as soon as possible. Are you really leaving? Su Shi frowned slightly. Yes. Su Zimo nodded. Su Shi didn't feel any regret or pity when he saw Su Zimo refuse his invitation. And instead, a trace of relief flashed past his eyes, as if he was relieved of a heavy burden. His invitation just now was only a test. If Su Zimo really stayed behind, then he would surely keep a close eye on Su Zimo and be on full alert. Now that Su Zimo had made up his mind to leave, it instead allowed him to put down a load on his mind. Su Xiaotian had a reluctant expression instead. Su Zimo thought for a moment before asking, I heard Lu Tong say that the teleportation formation of Dragon Abyss City can only be used once a year. I wonder if this is true. It is indeed so. Su Shi was in a good mood, and he waved his hand and said, However, you're Xiaotian's savior, so it's not a big deal for me to give the order to activate the teleportation formation for you alone. You don't have to pay the 100 elemental spirit stones as well. Thank you, City Lord. Su Zimo was secretly delighted in his heart as he thanked Su Shi. This way, not only could he leave Dragon Abyss Planet immediately, he could also save 100 elemental spirit stones. Elemental spirit stones were too important to him. Su Shi raised his hand and threw a token to Su Xiaotian, saying, Take my token and bring Su Zimo over. You can activate the teleportation formation directly. Finished speaking, Su Shi turned around and left. Big brother Su, follow me. Su Xiaotian brought Su Zimo and walked towards the direction of the teleportation formation of the city lord's estate. On the way, Su Xiaotian still couldn't resist asking, Big brother Su, are you really not planning on staying? My father was a little rude to you earlier, but he's actually a very nice person. Su Zimo smiled and lightly patted Su Xiaotian's shoulder, saying, Actually, your father's vigilance towards me isn't without reason. Ah. Su Xiaotian had a puzzled expression. Su Zimo explained, I've indeed saved you before, but how much do you know about me? How do you know that my actions aren't to get close to your father, or have some other motive? Su Xiaotian stammered a few times before saying, Big brother Su, you won't. Although he said that, he did not have any confidence and felt a little guilty. He realized that he knew nothing about Su Zimo other than the other party's name. Su Zimo smiled and said, The pugilistic world is dangerous. It's never wrong to be cautious. Yes. Su Xiaotian nodded vigorously. The two of them walked through the twisting stone path in the garden. Before long, the path ahead opened up, and a teleportation formation made of many green stones appeared. Every piece of blue stone was engraved with mysterious and complicated runes. The final teleportation formation was formed by so many green stones placed together. Around the teleportation formation, 4 to 5 guards were guarding it. Su Xiaotian stepped forward and took out the city lord's token, saying, Guard Chui, this is my father's token. He wants you to activate the teleportation formation and send someone away. Guard Chui's face was slightly red as he avoided eye contact and said embarrassedly, Little young master, I'm really sorry. This teleportation formation is broken. What? Su Xiaotian frowned and scolded. Why is the teleportation formation suddenly broken? How are you guys guarding it? Although he was young, he already had a dignified aura. Su Zimo stepped forward and looked around the teleportation formation. Soon he discovered the problem and pointed to a long green stone. This green stone is broken. It can't be an accident for it to be broken to such an extent. It must be caused by an external force. In other words, someone did not want him to leave, and destroyed the teleportation formation on purpose. Su Xiaoyan's expression was cold as he said in a deep voice, "Guard Chui, how dare you? This isn't my fault." Guard Chui rubbed his hands and laughed dryly. "It was fine before, but it was broken. I'm definitely not the one who did it." "Then who is it?" Su Xiaotian asked. "I don't know either," Guard Chui said with a fake smile. Although he was respectful towards this little young master before him on the surface, he truly did not take him to heart. Su Xiaotian gripped his fists and said coldly, "You're guarding this place, but you don't know who broke the teleportation formation. That's your negligence. I'll report to my father right now and punish you for your negligence." Didn't. When Guard Chui heard Su Xiaotian mention the city lord, he panicked and stammered, "Commander Lu came earlier and asked us to leave for a period of time before we left. We don't know what happened during that period of time." "It's Lu Tong." Su Xiaotian gritted his teeth with an indignant expression. Chapter 1909. Su Xiaotian asked, "How long will it take to repair this formation?" "Don't worry, little young master. I'll definitely be able to repair the teleportation formation within half a year." Bodyguard Chui swore solemnly. "That long?" Su Xiaotian frowned. He knew nothing about the Tao of array formations, and could not be of much help. Su Zimo looked at the green stone for a while before turning around. He looked at Bodyguard Chui and said indifferently, 20 days is enough to repair this green stone." Actually, Su Zimo's figure was a little conservative. He did not know much about the formation patterns of teleportation formations. If he knew the formation patterns of teleportation formations like the back of his hand, he would be able to repair this green stone within 10 days. "You," Bodyguard Chui blushed and straightened his neck, wanting to argue. However, he felt guilty after Su Zimo's gaze and said weakly, "Do you know anything about formations?" "A little." Su Zimo's gaze was bright as he said resolutely, "Give me 20 days and I'll be able to repair the formation patterns of this teleportation formation." Su Xiaotian glared at Bodyguard Chui and shouted, "How dare you lie to me?" Bodyguard Chui was sweating profusely and looked flustered as he explained hurriedly, "Don't be angry, little young master. The half a year I said was just in case. Under normal circumstances, it won't take half a year. Don't worry, little young master. I'll definitely do my best to repair the teleportation formation within 20 days. Su Xiaotian said in a deep voice. "If the teleportation formation can't be activated after 20 days, you'll be guilty of dereliction of duty." "Yes, yes." Bodyguard Chui bowed and nodded repeatedly. "Brother Su, let's go," Su Xiaotian called out. Su Zimo stood motionless, deep in thought. Su Xiaotian thought that Su Zimo was a little disappointed and consoled. "Brother Su, don't worry. I'll prepare a room for you. You can settle down first. It's only 20 days, and it'll pass in the blink of an eye." "There's no need." Su Zimo suddenly waved his hand and said, "I'll stand guard here." Su Xiaotian was stunned for a moment, and quickly understood. He asked, "Big brother Su, are you worried that Lu Tong will come back and destroy the teleportation array again?" Su Zimo shook his head, and did not explain. What Su Xiaotian said was only one of the reasons. Su Zimo was thinking about something else. Lu Tong's move to destroy the teleportation formation was not a brilliant move. It could not even be considered a scheme. At most, it could only delay him for 20 days. What was Lu Tong trying to do? Could it be that he just wanted to vent his anger? Su Zimo was a little worried that something else would happen in the next 20 days. Of course, it would be best if he didn't. If he stayed here, he could use this opportunity to learn how to control the teleportation formation's runes. In the future, even if no one helped him, he would be able to activate the teleportation formations in the major cities by himself. "Big brother Su, I'll accompany you." Su Xiaotian patted his chest and said righteously. Guard Chui cried out bitterly at the side. He did not dare to slack off under Su Xiaotian's watch, and could only repair the teleportation formation with all his might. Su Zimo also started to learn the teleportation formation's runes. The teleportation formation was considered a relatively common formation in the upper realm. With his comprehension of formations, it was not difficult for him to comprehend and control these formation runes. Time passed bit by bit. In the next few days, the City Lord's mansion and Dragon Lake City were the same as usual. There was nothing unusual. Lu Tong did not appear again. In the blink of an eye, 10 days had passed, and the teleportation formation entered the end of its repair. On this day, the City Lord Su Shi appeared and called Su Zimo and Su Xiaotian over. He said, Lu Tong sent an invitation. He's holding a banquet in his mansion today, and invited the various commanders and us to go over. All right, I'll go ask him why he destroyed the teleportation formation. Su Xiaotian was still indignant when he thought of this. Xiaotian. Su Shi frowned slightly and said, Don't mention this again. Su Xiaotian puckered his lips and didn't say another word. Su Zimo pondered for a moment before declining. City Lord, I have some enmity with Lu Tong, and I'm not familiar with the other commanders, so I won't go. It's precisely because of this that you should attend the banquet. Su Shi said. Lu Tong held the banquet today with the intention of easing the tension between the two of you. It's best that you don't form any enmity with him. Su Zimo's expression was calm, and he disapproved in his heart. Once the teleportation formation was repaired, he would leave Dragon Lake Star. So what if he formed enmity with Lu Tong? In all fairness, Su Zimo really didn't take Lu Tong seriously. Su Shi seemed to have seen through Su Zimo's thoughts and shook his head lightly. Lu Tong has a senior brother in Azure Cloud County, and I heard he's an earthly immortal realm expert. Su Zimo's brows raised slightly. Su Shi said, I can only warn you up to here. Su Zimo gradually came to an understanding. Before this, Su Shi had always been patient with Lu Tong, and what he was worried about was probably the senior brother of Lu Tong. Su Shi was reminding Su Zimo out of good intentions that there was no need to become enemies with Lu Tong and offend an earthly immortal realm expert. Su Zimo was silent for a moment before he said, City Lord, forgive me for being presumptuous, but Lu Tong is already a 9th stage mystic immortal. Aren't you worried that he'll join forces with that earthly immortal realm expert to replace you? These words were already slightly overboard. If Su Shi turned hostile on the spot and accused Su Zimo of sowing discord, it wasn't impossible. However, as far as Su Zimo was concerned, the timing of the banquet Lu Tong held today was a little coincidental, and it probably wouldn't be a good banquet. Ha 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 ha. Su Shi roared with laughter and said, You're worrying too much. I'm the city lord appointed by the county governor of Azure Cloud County. If Lu Tong dares to join forces with outsiders to make a move against me, he'll be besieged by the Azure Cloud County. Not to mention earthly immortals, even heavenly immortals and sects can't offend the dignity of the Azure Cloud County. Su Xiaotian asked with slight worry. Then Lu Tong won't make a move against Big Brother Su during the banquet, right? Don't worry, Su Shi said. With me around, I can guarantee Su Zimo's safety. Su Zimo pondered for a moment and didn't refuse anymore. The three of them left the city lord's estate and quickly arrived at Lu Tong's estate. Su Shi was rather familiar with this governor's estate. He walked along the stone path and arrived before a large hall before long. The large hall was slightly empty. There was only one person sitting in the middle, and it was Lu Tong. Su Shi narrowed his eyes slightly. Something was wrong. The surroundings of this large hall seemed to be too quiet, and there weren't even any attendants or maidservants. Moreover, this banquet would normally invite all the governors of Dragon Lake City, but now there were only the three of them. Could it be that Lu Tong really has ill intentions? Su Shi frowned secretly. Ever since Lu Tong advanced to a 9th stage mystic immortal, the relationship between the two of them had undergone a subtle change. However, the two of them had always maintained restraint and didn't shed all pretenses of cordiality. He was the city lord appointed by the county governor of Azure Cloud County. Normally speaking, it was impossible for Lu Tong to replace him. Moreover, he didn't want to eliminate Lu Tong and offend the earthly immortal expert behind Lu Tong because of this, and offend a great enemy for no reason. Chapter 1910. Su Shi stood at the entrance of the hall and spread out his divine sense to search the surroundings a few times. Yet he didn't notice anything unusual. There was only Lu Tong within the hall. Su Shi's heart eased up slightly, and he took the lead to enter the hall. Su Zimo was searching the surroundings as well, and he didn't notice any danger with his spirit sense. Where are the others? Su Shi looked at Lu Tong and asked bluntly. Sit. Lu Tong didn't stand up and still sat at the seat at the center, and he pointed to the side seat below him as he spoke with a spurious smile. Normally speaking, even if it was a banquet held in Lu Tong's estate, with their identities, it ought to be Su Shi who sat at the host's seat. Yet now, not only did Lu Tong not stand up and give way, he even pointed to the guest seat at the side to ask Su Shi to sit, and this had already broken the rules. You! Su Xiaotian was furious in his heart and was unable to restrain himself, and he was just about to speak when he was pressed down by Su Shi. Su Shi's expression was calm, and he wasn't angry, and he called Su Xiaotian and Su Zimo over to the guest seat below him to sit down. Speak, why did you call me over? Su Shi went straight to the point and asked bluntly. All right, I won't beat around the bush. Lu Tong smiled and said, I called all of you over today for two things. Firstly, kill Su Zimo. When he spoke up to hear, Lu Tong paused slightly and looked at the expressions of Su Shi and the others. Su Shi and Su Zimo's expressions remained unchanged, and only Su Xiaotian glared angrily at him. The smile in Lu Tong's eyes grew wider as he continued. The second thing is that you've sat on the position of city governor for so long, and it's time for you to give it up. Su Shi laughed lightly and replied with a question. Give it up to who? You? Of course it's me. Lu Tong stood up and spread open his arms as he said proudly. On Dragon Lake Star, in terms of background and combat strength, only I have the qualifications to be city governor. Su Shi, even if you cultivate to the 9th level of the mysterious immortal realm, you're only a person from the lower dimensions, and you'll never be able to escape the identity of a servant. You don't have the qualifications to challenge me. Su Shi also slowly got up, exuding an extremely sharp aura. He stared at Lu Tong with an unfriendly expression. Su Zimo looked on coldly. Before this, Su Shi and Lu Tong both had a tacit understanding and did not shed all pretenses of cordiality. But now, Lu Tong had invited Su Shi here and taken the initiative to expose this matter. He must have prepared some sort of backup plan. Don't be nervous, Lu Tong said with a smile. Su Shi, I'm giving you this opportunity because we've known each other for so many years. You have to think about it carefully. If you take the initiative to withdraw, you might be able to save the lives of your family. If you refuse to come to your senses and refuse to abdicate, then don't blame me for being merciless and killing you. Oh! Su Shi's aura suddenly soared, as if he had broken through some kind of shackle and reached a whole new level. He said slowly, I'd like to see how you're going to kill me. Earth Immortal. Moreover, it was a second-stage Earth Immortal. Su Zimo nodded secretly. As expected of the lord of a city, Su Shi had concealed his strength so deeply. Judging from Lu Tong and Su Xiaotian's astonishment, there was probably no one in the entire Dragon Lake City who knew of Su Shi's true cultivation. No wonder Su Shi dared to attend Lu Tong's banquet fearlessly. However, what caused Su Zimo to feel uneasy was that apart from the initial astonishment, there was no fear in Lu Tong's reaction. Lu Tong shook his head and looked at Su Shi pitifully. This is the path you chose. Don't blame me. As he spoke, Lu Tong retreated. All of a sudden, Su Zimo's heart skipped a beat as though he sensed something. He turned around abruptly and looked behind him. Unknowingly, there was actually an additional person at the entrance of the hall. Even with his spiritual perception, he hadn't noticed when this person had appeared. It was a middle-aged man with a tall figure. He stood at the entrance of the hall like a guardian and emitted an extremely terrifying aura that sealed off all paths of retreat. Earth Immortal. The middle-aged man was an Earth Immortal as well. Moreover, the aura he emitted was obviously much stronger than Su Shi's. Su Shi's attention was originally on Lu Tong. At this moment, he seemed to have realized something and turned around. Seeing the middle-aged man, Su Shi's pupils shrank. He used his spirit perception to scan the area, and his expression changed drastically. Rank 7 Earth Immortal. Senior brother, it's fortunate that you're here. I'll leave Su Shi to you, Lu Tong said with a smile. Su Shi's expression turned ugly. He knew that Lu Tong had a senior brother who was an Earth Immortal expert. However, he did not expect this Earth Immortal expert to be of such a high rank. He had reached rank 7. Su Zimo's expression turned solemn as well. The strength of a rank 7 Earth Immortal had far exceeded what he could endure. Now, the two sacred beast souls on the walls of the bronze square cauldron had exhausted their energy and were in a deep slumber. Among all his techniques, there were only a few that could threaten an Earth Immortal, let alone a rank 7 Earth Immortal. Su Shi quickly calmed down and took out a jade token from his storage bag. On it were the words Dragon Origin. I have the Dragon Abyss token personally issued by the County Chief of Azure Cloud County, Su Shi said in a low voice. As long as I crush the Dragon Abyss token, I can inform the County Chief of what happened here. By then, the two of you will be hunted down by the immortal soldiers of Azure Cloud County, let alone the County Chief of Dragon Lake City. Neither of you will be able to escape. Servants nowadays are so arrogant. The middle-aged man placed his hands behind his back and looked arrogant. He lifted his head slightly and did not look at Su Zimo and the other two. You can try crushing it, the middle-aged man said mockingly, as if he did not care at all. Su Shi held the Dragon Abyss token tightly and said nervously, although you're a rank 7 Earth Immortal, if you provoke the Executioner Guards, there will be no place for you in the entire Dajin Immortal Nation. Have you seen the Executioner Guards? The middle-aged man asked with a half-smile. So what if I've seen them? So what if I haven't? Su Shi was still confronting the middle-aged man, and his tone was not weak. Today, I'll let you know why you're going to die. The middle-aged man smiled faintly and slapped his storage bag. He took out a black armor and put it on. The armor looked extremely heavy, as if it was made of countless metal feathers. It was compact and detailed, emitting a murderous aura and flowing with divine light. Su Shi's expression changed, and his face turned pale. It was as if he had lost his soul, and his aura was gone. Even when he sensed that the middle-aged man was a rank 7 mystic immortal, Su Shi did not have such a reaction. Su Zimo did not understand why Su Shi's fighting spirit would crumble when he saw the armor. It was as if he had seen a ghost. Black gold, feather armor, Executioner Guards. Su Shi's lips trembled slightly as he uttered a few words. Clang! The middle-aged man pulled out the long saber hanging on his waist. A gust of cold air spread out, and the temperature in the hall plummeted. Even Su Zimo could not help but shiver. The long saber shone with a cold light, and was filled with blood qi. On both sides of the saber, there were two words, Executioner and Executioner. Fuping Chinese. Chapter 1911. Su Shi's face was ashen, and his eyes were dim. Just now, the aura that he had when he confronted the middle-aged man was gone. Su Xiaotian, the bold young man, trembled when he heard the words Executioner's Guard. His face was filled with fear, and he was trembling slightly. Su Zimo realized that the Executioner's Guard held a high position in Green Cloud County, or rather, in the Dajin Celestial Nation. Even the governor of Longyuan City had to bow down to them. Su Shi was silent for a moment before he took a deep breath. I'm the governor of Longyuan City after all. Even if you're an executioner, you can't just cripple me and punish me as you wish. Ha, the middle-aged man sneered. You're just a servant. I, the Executioner's Guard, can kill or cripple you. Why do I need a reason? If you really want a reason, it's that you shouldn't be the governor. Even if you're the governor of a remote star in the Dajin Celestial Nation, a servant like you can't get involved. Plop. Su Shi's face was filled with despair as he knelt down in front of the middle-aged man. Father! Su Xiaotian exclaimed. Kneel down! Su Shi shouted and pressed Su Xiaotian's shoulder, forcing him to kneel down. It's useless to kneel down. The middle-aged man shook his head. You should have heard of the legend of the Executioner's Guard. Once the Executioner's blade is unsheathed, it must taste blood and slay souls. Su Zimo stood still and watched coldly. No matter who the other party was, he would not wait for death. However, the combat power of a rank 7 Earth deity was too strong, and he did not have many opportunities to attack. Once he attacked, he had to ensure that his attack would hit the target without any mistakes. Otherwise, he would definitely die. Su Zimo kept quiet and concealed his aura, trying his best not to let the middle-aged man notice him. He was waiting for an opportunity to strike. Ha 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 ha. Lu Tong smiled proudly and walked to Su Shi's side. He bent down slightly and stretched out his hand to pat Su Shi's face. He said sarcastically, "Sir City Lord, what are you doing? I can't afford to take responsibility." Su Shi's face turned red from being humiliated by Lu Tong, but he still did not dare to resist. "Brother Lu, I know that I'm going to die today. I just want to beg you to spare Xiaotian's life," Su Shi said in a low voice. "It's too late." Lu Tong curled his lips and said, "Don't say that I'm ruthless. I gave you a chance just now, but you didn't cherish it and even threatened to suppress me. Hee hee." Su Shi pleaded. "All these years, little Tian has always called you Uncle Lu. Don't involve a child in our battle." Lu Tong glanced at Su Xiaotian and said, "He is indeed a child now, but after 10,000 years, when he grows up, he will no longer be a child. I don't want to leave any trouble behind. If I want to cut the grass, I have to remove the roots." Lu Tong. Su Shi's eyes suddenly surged with killing intent. He scurried up from the ground and said sternly, "I'll fight it out with you." Lu Tong seemed to have been prepared for this. He retreated quickly and laughed. "Haha, I knew you would do this." The middle-aged man stepped forward and swung his arm. The execution saber in his hand emitted a terrifying saber glow as it slashed at Su Shi. Although Su Shi was also an earth immortal, his strength paled in comparison to the executioner's saber. Su Shi and his son were in despair. Just then, Su Zimo made his move. He had been sitting not far away motionless. He did not even say a word. Almost no one paid attention to him. After the middle-aged man entered the hall, he did not even look at Su Zimo. However, this person's figure flickered, and he disappeared from where he stood. When he reappeared, he was behind the middle-aged man. True Dragon's 9 flashes. This move was extremely sudden. If it were Su Shi or Lu Tong, they would not have been able to react in time. But the middle-aged man was a rank 7 Earth Immortal, and the executioner's guard. He was extremely alert. The moment Su Zimo disappeared, he sensed it. Surprise flashed in his eyes, but he regained his composure. "You don't know what's good for you." The middle-aged man did not receive it. Instead, he grabbed the green figure behind him with his left hand. In the middle-aged man's palm, Yuan Qi gathered violently, as if it wanted to destroy everything. When Su Zimo appeared, a pair of ivory tusks that were as white as jade appeared behind him. They were incomparably sharp and his aura skyrocketed. This was his innate divine power, the divine 6 tusks elephant. His physique, bloodline, essence spirit and various other powers had all doubled. He was initially a rank 7 mystic immortal, but with the boost of the divine 6 tusks elephant, his strength rose to almost rank 8. Oh! The middle-aged man was surprised and curious when he sensed the change in Su Zimo behind him. Divine powers and secret skills that could increase one's strength were relatively rare. Although he was an executioner's guard, he did not know of such secret skills. However, the middle-aged man did not take it to heart. Even if the subordinate behind him released a divine power and secret skill that was equivalent to a rank 8 mystic immortal, he would definitely not be able to withstand that palm strike. Su Zimo's expression was calm. He knew very well that almost all of his trump cards were useless against a rank 7 Earth Immortal. Be it essence spirit secret skills, visual techniques, sound domain secret skills, or Dao fire sword art. They were not much of a threat to a rank 7 Earth Immortal. The difference in cultivation level between the two was too great. The only thing that could threaten a rank 7 Earth Immortal was the Saber of Time. His essence spirit was originally at rank 9 Mystic Aeon. After releasing the divine 6 tusks elephant, his essence spirit had broken through to the earthly Aeon realm. Although it was only rank 1 earthly Aeon, it meant that he could release a great divine power. Before leaving Wind Snow Ridge, he had tried it once. He released the divine six-tusked elephant, and his essence spirit had broken through to the earthly Aeon realm. He had successfully released a great divine power of the human Tao and turned Big Yellow back into a human. Saber of Time. Su Zimo pressed his hands before his chest. Gray mist surged in his palms and the power of his divine power spread out, forming a long gray saber. Su Zimo held the Saber of Time and stabbed it at the middle-aged man's palm. The middle-aged man suddenly felt his heart palpitate and his scalp tingle. He realized that something was wrong and wanted to stop, but it was too late. Bang! His palm collided with the Saber of Time. The Saber of Time shattered. The long saber was neither hard nor sharp, but it could cut through one's lifespan. Time was like a saber that aged people. In the lower realm, divine powers did not integrate with the heaven and earth Yuan Qi. When struck by the Saber of Time, one's lifespan would be reduced by 30,000 years. In the upper realm, the power of divine powers would increase tremendously after integrating with the heaven and earth Yuan Qi. With one strike, the middle-aged man's lifespan was reduced by 60,000 years. An earth immortal had a lifespan of 200,000 years. This middle-aged man had just reached 120,000 years old and was at the peak of an earth immortal. However, after being struck by the Saber of Time, his lifespan was reduced, and he aged at a speed visible to the naked eye. White hairs appeared on his head of black hair. Wrinkles also appeared on his face. His body had shrunk a little and his essence, qi, and spirit had been depleted. The middle-aged man only had 20,000 years left to live. The saber had cut him into his twilight years. Bookmark for easier reading. Chapter 1912. The entire process took a long time to describe, but in reality, it happened in the blink of an eye. My lifespan. The middle-aged man's face was filled with shock. The sudden loss of 60,000 years of lifespan had a huge impact on his entire body. You can control the power of time. The middle-aged man reacted quickly with a furious expression. He retracted his saber and gave up on Su Shi. Channeling his blood qi, he slashed behind him. A look of pity flashed through Su Zimo's eyes. It was actually a gamble for him to wait for this opportunity to strike. He was betting on whether he could deplete the middle-aged man's lifespan with his time saber. Unfortunately, it was still not enough. For a fight of this level, a single mistake could lead to eternal damnation. Now that he had failed to kill the middle-aged man, the situation had taken a turn for the worse, and Su Zimo was now in grave danger. Even though the middle-aged man was in his later years, he still had 20,000 years of lifespan left. The power of a rank 7 earthly immortal in his later years was not something that Su Zimo could take on head-on. He knew very well that the middle-aged man would definitely not be able to withstand another slash. However, the middle-aged man's reaction was too fast, and he did not give Su Zimo a second chance to use Time Saber. The Punisher's saber slashed down with a thunderous force. The saber light was blazing, and the saber chi was sharp, almost sealing off all of Su Zimo's escape routes. The saber was so fast that it even exceeded Su Zimo's reaction time. He did not have time to think. His glabella shone, and a bronze square cauldron appeared in front of him. Clang! The Punisher's saber landed heavily on the bronze square cauldron. An ear-piercing sound of metal clashing could be heard and sparks flew everywhere. The Punisher's saber bounced up slightly. At the same time, the bronze square cauldron was sent flying rapidly towards Su Zimo. Su Zimo raised both his arms, wanting to block the bronze square cauldron. Just now, the middle-aged man's attack was filled with rage. The terrifying power of the Punisher's saber was mostly neutralized by the bronze square cauldron, and it still landed on Su Zimo's body. Exclamation point. Su Zimo's body shook violently, and a sharp pain came from his arms. The bones in his body felt like they were about to fall apart, and he spat out a large mouthful of blood. The middle-aged man was surprised that the executioner's saber failed to shatter the bronze cauldron. But soon, his surprise was drowned by endless fury. To his horror, he discovered that even if he activated his primordial spirit, circulated his qi and blood, and condensed his divine abilities, he could not recover the 60,000 years of life that he had lost. In the upper realm, There were also some supernatural powers and secret techniques that could reduce one's lifespan. However, as long as he could break these secret techniques, his lifespan would be restored. But now his lifespan seemed to have passed forever, and it had been completely stripped from his body. You deserve to die 10,000 times. The middle-aged man's eyes widened as he strode towards Su Zimo. His body was filled with a dense murderous intent, and his eyes looked as if he wanted to skin Su Zimo alive. If he lost 60,000 years of his lifespan, it would be an irreparable injury to him. Even if he tore Su Zimo into pieces and skinned him alive, he would not be able to vent the anger in his heart. Su Zimo endured the pain in his body. Seizing the opportunity to distance himself from the middle-aged man, he activated his primordial spirit once more, wanting to condense Time Saber once more. However, his primordial spirit felt a wave of weakness. His body swayed, and he almost fainted on the spot. Su Zimo had only managed to raise his primordial spirit to Earth Essence Realm Level 1 with the help of the Six Fangs Divine Power. The consumption of his primordial spirit after releasing Time Saber once was terrifying. Releasing it a second time was beyond the limits of what his primordial spirit could endure. Furthermore, this was because his primordial spirit was fused with the Dragon Phoenix primordial spirit. If it was only Qinglian's primordial spirit, his actions earlier might have caused his primordial spirit to collapse. Die! Right then, the middle-aged man's voice sounded. The executioner's saber descended once more. This time round, the saber lights released by the executioner's saber were dense like a flood of ferocious beasts. With a torrential aura, they surrounded Su Zimo. Su Zimo could not move at all. He wanted to open his eyes to see the trajectory of the saber lights. However, the saber lights were so bright and sharp that Su Zimo teared up the moment he opened his eyes. These densely packed saber lights had completely cut off his five senses. Su Zimo could not dodge. Closing his eyes, he curled his body and rolled into the bronze square cauldron. Cling! Clang! Clang! The moment he was done, countless saber lights landed on the bronze square cauldron. If he was half a step slower, he would have been dismembered by the executioner's saber. Taking a deep breath, Su Zimo channeled his primordial spirit once more and conjured his time saber. His primordial spirit felt like it was being torn apart. However, his gaze was resolute, and he had no intention of stopping. This was his only chance. He had no chance of winning against a level 7 Earth immortal head-on. Ah! Su Zimo cried out in pain. Within his consciousness, the lotus hole of the creation lotus platform spewed out a resplendent light that replenished the power of his primordial spirit. However, he still could not condense a second time saber. All of a sudden, two different powers, one black and one white, surged into Su Zimo's consciousness. Although they were completely different, they had a mysterious connection. They were the powers of Extreme Yin and Extreme Yang released by the Illumination Stone and Nether Fluorescent Stone. The two powers fused into Su Zimo's primordial spirit, causing the power of his primordial spirit to surge. A second time saber was formed in his palm. On the battlefield, the middle-aged man had a cold expression when he saw that the executioner's saber could not penetrate the bronze square cauldron. His figure flashed, and he appeared above the bronze square cauldron instantly. Let's see how long you can hide. The middle-aged man growled deeply and gripped the executioner's saber with both hands. Descending from the skies, he stabbed down viciously into the bronze square cauldron. The middle-aged man's expression changed. Su Zimo was nowhere to be seen in the bronze square cauldron. He had just witnessed Su Zimo hiding within. But now, the man had vanished into thin air. Not good. Suddenly, the middle-aged man felt a chill run up his back. Suddenly, a ghostly figure appeared behind him. True Dragon's 9 flashes. At the second level of that movement technique, Su Zimo could flash twice within a short period of time. Just now, he had already flashed once. This was the second time. I'll send you on your way. Su Zimo's voice sounding sinister and terrifying like a malevolent ghost. The middle-aged man sped forward with all his might, wanting to dodge and widen the distance between him and Su Zimo. Su Zimo's expression was cold as he waved his palm. The gray saber in his hands turned into a streak of light, and disappeared into the middle-aged man's back. There were no injuries on the middle-aged man's body. However, his body was withering at a speed visible to the naked eye. Ah! The middle-aged man's cry was filled with fear. He only had 20,000 years left of his lifespan, and could not withstand the saber of time a second time. The middle-aged man's glabella shone, and his essence spirit escaped. The moment his essence spirit left his body withered completely. His blood chi was still and his hair was white, resembling a piece of rotten wood and withered bones. The middle-aged man's essence spirit wanted to escape the hall. However, before he could get far, his essence spirit dimmed as well. In the blink of an eye, it dissipated into nothingness. Time was like a saber that sliced off one's lifespan. The essence spirit could not avoid it either. Chapter 1913. The Level 7 Earth Immortal Executioner's essence spirit dissipated, and his body withered. He died on the spot. The entire process took less than a few breaths. Su Shi and Su Xiaotian widened their eyes in shock. Both of them were still kneeling on the ground in shock. They had not expected that Su Zimo would dare to attack a Level 7 Earth Immortal. More than that, they had not expected that a Level 7 Earth Immortal Executioner would be killed on the spot by a Level 7 Mystic Immortal. Lu Tong, who was at the side, could not react in time as well. When Su Zimo attacked, Lu Tong sneered with a mocking expression. However, Lu Tong could not laugh before long. The moment his senior brother died, Lu Tong's smile froze on his face, and his eyes were filled with shock and disbelief. The only thing left in his mind was confusion. How was that possible? Under normal circumstances, it was indeed impossible. The reason why Su Zimo could kill a Level 7 Earth Immortal with the help of 2 time sabers and the True Dragon's 9 flashes was partly due to luck. Even if he could do it again, he was not confident that he could kill this person. The reason why the executioner died was because he did not take Su Zimo seriously and underestimated him first. Furthermore, he did not understand Su Zimo's trump cards and methods at all. After losing 60,000 years of his lifespan and entering the twilight of his life, his reactions were slower as well. That was the reason why he was killed by the second time saber. Su Zimo's essence spirit was greatly depleted after killing the executioner, and the mystic power of the 6-tusked divine elephant had dissipated as well. After that intense battle, his injuries were affected once more, and he felt waves of excruciating pain. However, now was not the time to heal his injuries. Today's matter was not over yet. Su Zimo swept his gaze and looked at Lu Tong, who was not far away. Stomping his feet, he burst forth with his physical body and charged towards Lu Tong. He had to kill Lu Tong. The power of Su Zimo's essence spirit was almost depleted, and he could no longer release any mystic arts. He could only rely on his physical body and bloodline to fight in close combat. Lu Tong shuddered and woke up as well, looking at the charging Su Zimo with a murderous aura. Lu Tong's face was pale, and he was scared out of his wits. He was a Level 9 Mystic Immortal, 2 whole realms higher than Su Zimo. Meanwhile, Su Zimo's primordial spirit was weak and heavily injured. As long as he went all out, he might be able to stop Su Zimo. However, all that was left in Lu Tong's mind was the scene of Su Zimo killing a Level 7 earthly deity with just 2 slashes. He had already forgotten that Su Zimo was a 7th stage Mystic Immortal, and that Su Zimo was seriously injured. At this moment, he only wanted to escape from this place. Freeze! Lu Tong activated his primordial spirit and used the fastest speed to release the body-fixing technique and cast it on Su Zimo. If Su Zimo was at his peak, this fixed body art would have little effect on him. But at this moment, he was dragging his heavily injured body while his soul core was weak, and he was actually frozen on the spot by Lu Tong and was unable to move. Lu Tong was overjoyed seeing this and immediately fled without hesitation. Swoosh! Without hesitation, Su Zimo channeled his blood chi, causing waves of green blood chi to surge from his body and break free from the restraints of the body-fixing technique instantly. Where do you think you're going? Su Zimo hollered and chased out of the hall. If he was at his peak, he could catch up in the blink of an eye as long as he released his golden rock wings. But now, Lu Tong was fleeing with all his might, while Su Zimo chased after him with his physical strength. For a moment, it was difficult for him to close the distance. If Lu Tong escaped outside and was seen by the other guards, this matter would probably not be able to be hidden. Boom! Right then, the power of divine power spread, and a gigantic mountain peak descended, almost crushing Lu Tong below. Lu Tong stopped in time as the mountain peak blocked his path. It was Su Shi who chased out of the hall and attacked in time. Su Shi quickly calmed down from the shock just now. He quickly realized that this matter absolutely could not be spread out. Although he was not the one who killed the executioner guards in Dragon Lake City, he would not be able to escape the death penalty. At that time, there was a high chance that his family would be implicated. He had to silence Lu Tong in order to conceal this matter. Although Su Shi's attack did not injure Lu Tong, it blocked the latter's escape route. With this slight delay, Su Zimo had already caught up. Without a word, he flipped his palm and suppressed Lu Tong. The palm was like a gigantic stone mill that burst forth with a crushing and twisting power. Great Chaos Essence Palm. Seeing that there was no way to escape, Lu Tong could only brace himself and withdraw a saber from his storage bag, slashing towards Su Zimo's palm. Clang! Lu Tong's saber was a supreme-grade mystic-grade Dharma treasure. However, there was no blood when it collided with Su Zimo's palm. Instead, there was a crisp sound as though it had struck a metal rock. Not only that, Lu Tong felt an extremely ferocious power surge into his body through the saber. His body shuddered and his palm was torn apart, dripping with blood. In melee combat, even Lu Tong could not defend against the burst of blood qi from Qinglian's true body. Su Zimo exerted strength with his fingers and gripped the saber tightly, snatching it away and throwing it in reverse. Lu Tong could not react in time and could only leap up instinctively. Poof! The saber transformed into a cold beam of light and entered Lu Tong's chest instantly. Initially, the saber was aimed at Lu Tong's glabella. However, Lu Tong managed to avoid a fatal blow because of his leap. Lu Tong's body was sent flying by the power contained in the saber, and he slammed heavily into the mountain peak behind him as his gaze dimmed. His heart had already been pierced. Although his essence spirit was not dead, the essence spirit of a mystic immortal would not be able to live for long after leaving the body. Right at this moment, Su Shi descended and slapped a palm onto the top of Lu Tong's head. Bang! Lu Tong's gaze froze as his essence spirit shattered and he died. Su Zimo panted slightly. He dragged his severely injured body and attacked consecutively, causing his injuries to worsen once more. At that moment, his breath reeked of blood. However, he did not choose to heal his injuries. Instead, he focused his attention and glared at the city lord Su Shi, who was not far away in silence. Lu Tong of the executioner's guard died one after another. Right now, Su Shi was a grade 2 earth immortal and was the strongest person in the courtyard in terms of cultivation and combat strength. If Su Shi attacked him, there was a high chance that he wanted to silence him and frame him. Su Shi looked at Su Zimo as well. Father! Right then Su Xiaotian rushed out as well. Su Shi's expression relaxed as he whispered, "Clean up this place first. Don't alarm anyone else." Su Zimo nodded and heaved a sigh of relief. The three of them worked together to clean up the bloodstains and traces of the battle. Su Shi handed the storage bags of the executioner's guard and Lu Tong to Su Zimo. Thereafter, under Su Shi's lead, the three of them left the place secretly and returned to the city lord's residence. "What do you intend to do?" Su Zimo asked. The death of a commander was no small matter. Furthermore, there was an executioner whose background was unknown as well. Su Shi said in a deep voice, "Brother Su, rest and recuperate first. Leave this to me. As long as we don't say anything, no one will know the truth of the matter." Both of their hands were stained with blood for this matter. No one would benefit from revealing the truth. 2K Reading Network. Chapter 1914. Su Zimo recuperated in the city lord's residence for 3 days. Relying on the powerful self-healing ability of Qinglian's true body, his injuries were mostly healed. In these 3 days, The transportation formation was also repaired. Su Zimo did not leave immediately. Instead, he went to bid farewell to Su Shi and asked him some questions. The people in Feng Shuling did not know much about Azure Cloud County and the Dajin Celestial Empire. Although Su Shi was also someone who ascended from the lower realm, he was able to become the city lord of Dragon Lake City with his own ability. He definitely knew a lot about Azure Cloud County. If he could understand more about Azure Cloud County, he could also avoid some disasters in advance. Su Shi was surprised to see Su Zimo visit him. He thought that after being severely injured by a Stage 7 Mystic Immortal, he would need at least a year to recuperate. He did not expect that after just 3 days, Su Zimo was almost healed. In Su Shi's heart, his evaluation of Su Zimo rose to another level. Brother Su. Su Shi greeted Su Zimo with cupped fists. He did not put on the airs of a city lord at all. Even though Su Zimo's cultivation realm was lower than his, he knew in his heart that this seemingly frail scholar with delicate features before him was definitely a ruthless character. Brother Su, are you leaving? Su Shi asked. Su Zimo nodded and said, after 2 days, when my injuries are healed, I will leave. I am here to ask some questions. Brother Su, please ask. Su Shi said. Su Zimo pondered for a while and asked, I heard that there are 3,000 worlds in the upper realm. Which world does Dragon Lake Star belong to? Generally speaking, it belongs to the Heaven Realm. Su Shi replied. But the Heaven Realm is too big and unimaginable. Even Heaven Immortals and True Immortals can't explore the entire Heaven Realm. Su Zimo had heard Daiyu mention the Heaven Realm before. According to Daiyu, most of the billions of humans in the lower realm would ascend to the Heaven Realm. The human emperor also belonged to the Heaven Realm. Daiyu had also said that his Qinglian's real body could also ascend to the Heaven Realm. Although Su Zimo had experienced a lot of tribulations during his ascension, he still came to the Heaven Realm in the end. The Heaven World is divided into 3 domains, the 9 Firmament Immortal Domain, the Pure Land of Bliss, and the Devil Domain. Su Shi continued. Legend has it that a sacred tree grows between these 3 regions. Its branches and leaves are luxuriant, and it covers the sky. Its thick and strong roots connect the territories of these 3 regions. A single tree is connected to 3 regions? Su Zimo's heart jolted. What kind of concept was that? Just how powerful was this holy tree? Su Shi said, of course, these are all legends that I heard in the Cyan Cloud County, so they can't be accurate. Rumor has it that this sacred tree is the foundation of the Heaven Realm. It is immortal and cannot be shaken. It gathers the heaven and earth vital energy of the higher realms. For a tree to become the foundation of a realm, it was indeed worthy of the title of Holy Tree. Su Zimo said, if that's the case, the Great Jin Celestial Empire should be one of the forces in the 9 Firmament Immortal Domain. Yes and no. Su Shi smiled and said, the 9 Firmament Immortal Domain is just a general name. If you really want to break it down, there are as many as 9 celestial domains. That's why it's called the 9 Firmament Immortal Domain. The Great Jin Celestial Empire and the Dragon Abyss Planet belong to the Divine Firmament Immortal Domain within the 9 Firmament Immortal Domain. Su Zimo's mouth was slightly agape, and he looked shocked. Only now did he realize that the Heaven Realm was much bigger than he had imagined. The Dragon Abyss Planet he was on was only a remote planet in the Divine Firmament Immortal Domain. There were a total of 9 large domains, like the Divine Firmament Immortal Domain. 9 large domains formed the 9 Firmament Immortal Domain, and the 9 Firmament Immortal Domain was only a part of the Heaven Realm. When Su Shi saw Su Zimo's stunned expression, he smiled and said, the 9 Firmament Immortal Domain is too far away from us. I don't even know what the other 8 celestial domains are called. I've been fighting in the upper world for tens of thousands of years, and until today, I've never left the Azure Cloud County, let alone the Great Jin Celestial Empire, and the Divine Firmament Immortal Domain. Su Zimo took a deep breath and calmed himself down. The Azure Cloud County was many times bigger than the Tianhuang mainland. In the entire Great Jin Celestial Empire, the Divine Firmament Immortal Domain, and even the 9 Firmament Immortal Domain, and the Heaven Realm, there would be countless geniuses born. And the heaven realm was only one of the 3,000 worlds. No wonder the human emperor, and Dai Yu had said something similar. In the upper world, geniuses and monsters were everywhere. It was a battlefield that was much more terrifying and cruel than the Tianhuang mainland. How many forces like the Great Jin Celestial Empire are there in the Divine Firmament Immortal Domain? Su Zimo asked. There are 3 in total, Su Shi said. The Great Jin Celestial Empire, the Flaming Sun Celestial Empire, and the Purple Xian Celestial Empire. These 3 celestial empires are each ruled by a celestial king. They divide the land and divide the Divine Firmament Immortal Domain. Celestial King. Above the perfected immortal was the Celestial King. Under the jurisdiction of the 3 celestial empires, no cultivator, no sect, and no force can go against the will of the celestial empires. Su Shi said. In the Divine Firmament Immortal Domain, the 3 celestial empires have absolute power. Su Zimo frowned slightly and asked, even the sects can't go against the celestial empires? They can't. Su Shi shook his head and said, in the Divine Firmament Immortal Domain, the sects are roughly divided into 2 levels, the Black sects and the Earth sections. The patriarch of the Earth sects has to be a perfected immortal. Even so, the Black and Earth sects can't go against the celestial empires. Once the celestial king is angry, millions of corpses will fall and blood will flow for thousands of miles. It's enough to flatten any sect. At this point, Su Shi seemed to have thought of something and paused for a moment before saying, I heard that above the Earth sects are the heaven sections. Although they are also in the Divine Firmament Immortal Domain, they are not ruled by the 3 celestial empires and are independent. Su Shi sighed. These are all illusory legends. Even if there are really heaven sects, we won't be able to come into contact with them. Su Zimo remained silent. He had personally experienced the battle in the abyss. In that battle, there were disciples of the heaven sects who had appeared. Su Zimo asked again, tell me about the Azure Cloud County and the Great Jin Celestial Empire. Su Shi said, there are a total of 16 counties under the jurisdiction of the Great Jin Celestial Empire. Each county has more than 100 cities. In each county, there is a county governor who manages everything. The county governor of each county must be a stage 9 heavenly immortal. Su Shi led Su Zimo out of the main hall and went outside to look at the starry sky. There was a huge shadow there. Su Shi pointed at the shadow and said, the shadow we see is the Divine Firmament Continent. Around the Divine Firmament Continent, there are many stars like the Dragon Abyss star, forming a sea of stars. Together, they form the Divine Firmament Immortal Domain. Su Shi continued, around the Divine Firmament Continent, the county governors of stars like the Dragon Abyss star do not have a high cultivation level. Stage 9 mystic immortals are enough. But if you go to the Divine Firmament Continent, you must be careful. Whether it's the Azure Cloud County or the other counties, the county governors must be stage 9 earthly immortals. Hearing this, Su Zimo's understanding of the Divine Firmament Immortal Domain gradually formed. Reading website, M. Chapter 1915. What's with the executioners? Su Zimo asked. Su Shi's eyes flashed with fear and dread when he heard the words executioner guard. Su Shi took a deep breath. The executioners are a special group of cultivators in the Dajin Celestial Nation. They wear black gold feathered armor and carry the executioner's saber. There are 2 divisions in the executioners, the heavenly guards and the earthly guards. The requirements to become an executioner are very strict. Apart from being absolutely loyal, one's cultivation base must not be too low. Only level 7, level 8, and level 9 earth immortals are qualified to become executioners' earthly guards. Su Zimo nodded. In other words, the executioners were the strongest earth immortals and sky immortals. Su Shi continued, I heard that only the royals of Dajin can command the executioners. Only the governors of the 16 counties are qualified to command the executioners. The executioners have a very high status. They are in charge of punishing and killing in the Dajin Celestial Nation. Most of the time, they can kill first and report later. It's not just me. Even the city masters of Godly Cloud's continent have to be courteous to the executioners. Realization flashed through Su Zimo's mind. No wonder Su Shi was so wary of Lu Tong's senior brother. The executioners had too much power. Their battle strength was also the best among their peers. Who could resist them? Su Zimo said. The death of the executioners is a big deal. Someone will definitely come to investigate. What are your plans? Don't worry, Brother Su. I'm going to throw the bodies of Lu Tong and the executioners into the abyss. Even if someone comes, they won't be able to guess it's me. Su Zimo nodded. Under normal circumstances, Su Shi would not be able to kill an executioner. The difference between them was too great. Tossing the corpses of the executioner guards into the abyss made sense. After all, many Earth Immortals and Sky Immortals were buried in the abyss. It made sense for the executioners to die there. Brother Su, do you have any plans for going to Cyan Cloud County? Su Shi asked. Su Zimo shook his head. He didn't have any specific goals. His only thought was to collect as many elemental spirit stones as possible and cultivate with all his strength. On the Dragon Abyss planet, the heaven and earth essence energy was thin. Not even a single elemental spirit mine had formed. It was extremely difficult to obtain elemental holy rock. Only by going to Godly Cloud's continent would he have a chance to obtain more elemental holy stones. Su Zimo suddenly asked. According to your knowledge, where is the elemental spirit mine located in Cyan Cloud County? Elemental spirit mines are usually occupied by large and small sections. Su Shi said. The large elemental spirit mines are almost all under the control of the Great Gene Immortal Empire. Near every city, there are some elemental spirit ores. Brother Su, why are you asking this? Do you want to become a miner? Su Zimo answered ambiguously. Although he trusted Su Shi, there were some things that could not be said out loud. Su Shi said, if the miners collect enough elemental spirit stones, they can indeed exchange them for some soul-condensing pills. But I heard that miners will encounter some dangers. I don't know the specifics. Here is a map of Cyan Cloud County. Take it. Su Shi made a copy of the map in advance and handed it to Su Zimo. This map was refined from beast skin and was not big. When it was slowly unfolded, it was only 3 feet long and wide. But this map was densely covered with stars. The most eye-catching were the hundreds of cities. Su Zimo spread out his spirit sense and slowly entered a city called Glazed Light City. His vision seemed to enter the map. His field of vision was constantly expanding, and the information he could see became more and more detailed. A lot of information about this city quickly appeared in his mind. It was extremely magical. Su Zimo withdrew his spirit sense from Glazed Light City and continued to spread out to search outside the city. He could see some unique signs. Some places were herb fields, some places had sect logos, and some places were elemental spirit mines. Thank you, City Lord. Su Zimo nodded and thanked him. This map was too important to him. Su Shi said, actually, if there is a chance, I still recommend you to participate in some sect trials and try to enter a sect. With your combat strength, it should not be difficult to enter a Xian sect. Su Zimo smiled and did not explain. If he wanted to enter a sect, it would not be a problem. But even if he entered a sect, with his cultivation, it would be difficult for him to obtain elemental spirit stones. He had to find an elemental spirit mine first. Only then would he have a chance to carry out his plan. Su Shi said, in a few days, I should also leave Dragon Abyss planet and enter a sect. Su Shi's cultivation had already reached the Earth Immortal realm. Staying in Dragon Abyss City as the City Lord would not be beneficial to his cultivation. All these years, he did not leave because he wanted to wait for Su Xiaoyan's cultivation to increase a little before heading to Divine Cloud Continent together. Now that the executioners had fallen on Dragon Abyss planet, he would not stay here for long. The two of them chatted until night fell. Su Zimo got up and said goodbye. Brother Su, are you leaving now? There was a trace of reluctance in Su Xiaoyan's eyes. Su Zimo smiled and nodded. Su Shi also smiled and said, Xiaoyan, work hard in your cultivation. In the future, we will also go to Divine Cloud Continent. Maybe we will meet again there. Su Xiaotian nodded vigorously. The three of them went to the teleportation portal of the city lord's mansion. A few days ago, Su Zimo had already comprehended the runes of the teleportation portal and the activation spell. This time, he did not need anyone's help. He performed the spell himself and activated the teleportation portal. On the green stones of the teleportation portal, the runes shone brilliantly, forming a thick beam of light. Many runes appeared on the barrier outside. Su Zimo waved goodbye to Su Shi and Su Xiaotian and stepped into the beam of light. The light flashed, and Su Zimo's figure on the teleportation portal gradually became blurry. Su Zimo felt a powerful pulling force descend. Immediately after, the world spun before his eyes, and the starry sky flashed. It was as though time was messed up, and he had lost his five senses. After a few breaths, Su Zimo felt his body lighten, and he landed on solid ground. His vision recovered rapidly as well. Right now he was on another teleportation portal. From time to time, lights would flash on the teleportation portal, and other cultivators would descend. There were many of them, and no one knew where they came from. The teleportation portal was located in a gigantic palace. Not far away, there were guards in armor. Their bodies were as straight as spears, and their eyes were sharp. Their expressions were cold as they stared at Yi Qingyu and the others. Su Zimo took a deep breath of air and left the teleportation portal, walking out of the hall. His vision cleared up, and it was bustling. Many cultivators gathered everywhere. Auctions, immortal medicine stores, restaurants, everything was there, and it was bustling. There were all sorts of ancient buildings scattered all over the city. The long streets were extremely wide and extended in all directions with people coming and going. Some of the cultivators rode on Swanni and were as huge as masters. They inhaled smoke from their noses and mouths. Some of the cultivators rode on auspicious clouds and advanced slowly in an ethereal manner. Some of the cultivators sat on green lawns and soared above the city. The surrounding city walls were extremely tall and towered into the clouds. The walls shone with a mysterious light like mirrors. A majestic city appeared before Su Zimo's eyes. Glazed Light City, the closest city to Dragon Abyss planet. Chapter 1916. According to the information on the map, even Earth Immortals couldn't fly in the air in Glazed Light City. Only Sky Immortals had the right to do so. On the Dragon Lake City star, not to mention Sky Immortals, even Earth Immortals could not be seen. But in Luguang City, Sky Immortals could be seen everywhere. Any Xian Immortal who came to such a city would feel that they were insignificant. Some Xian Immortals who were teleported out of nowhere left the main hall. When they saw such a scene, they were stunned on the spot. When the guards at the entrance of the main hall saw this scene, the corners of their mouths curled up slightly. There was some disdain between their brows. Among the many Xian Immortals, Su Zimo was the calmest. Back then, in that abyss, not to mention Earth Immortals and Sky Immortals, even true Immortals had come. The scene in front of him was nothing. Su Zimo did not stay in Luguang City for too long. He roughly walked around and directly left the city. He sped all the way and went straight to a mountain range outside Luguang City. Wuning Mountain. Outside Glazed Light City, there was a mountain range that stretched endlessly, almost surrounding the entire Glazed Light City, like a natural barrier. In the mountain range, there were many kinds of plants and ancient trees. There were also many birds and beasts that lived there. Su Zimo prepared to temporarily open up a cave on Wuning Mountain and cultivate in seclusion. He would refine and absorb all the more than 300 elemental spirit stones in his storage bag before making plans. Not long after, Su Zimo found a relatively hidden cave halfway up a mountain. Su Zimo made a move and expanded the cave slightly, turning it into a simple cave abode for himself. Then, he set up many concealment and camouflage methods at the entrance of the cave. He carved the formation on the tortoise shell bit by bit. Only then did he feel slightly at ease. After doing all this, more than half a year had passed. Su Zimo came to the cave and sat down cross-legged. He took out an elemental spirit stone from his storage bag and started cultivating the Prajna Nirvana Sutra. On the Divine Cloud continent, the heaven and earth essence chi, was indeed much denser. Su Zimo had just started cultivating, and immediately felt it. In such an environment, his cultivation speed would increase by another level. Time flew by, winter came and summer came. In the blink of an eye, Su Zimo had been in Godly Cloud's continent for more than 100 years. On this day, he woke up from his secluded cultivation. After more than 100 years, the more than 300 elemental holy stones in the storage bag had been completely absorbed and refined. However, his cultivation base was still at the 7th level of the mystic origin stage. Back then, Su Zimo had only used less than 100 elemental spirit stones to break through from the 6th layer of the mystic origin stage to the 7th layer. But now, he had refined over 300 elemental spirit stones, and he still hadn't broken through. As one's cultivation deepened, the amount of elemental spirit stones required to break through would also increase. The requirements of Qinglian's true body were even more terrifying. For 100 years, Su Zimo had almost never moved from his position. At this time, the elemental spirit stones were exhausted. He slowly got up, brushed off the dust on his body, removed the immortal formation at the cave entrance, and left this place. He had to find a way to obtain a large amount of elemental spirit stones, so that his cultivation could increase rapidly. Su Zimo left Wuning Mountain and hurried on his way. After about half a day, he returned to Glazed Light City. He came to a wide long street in the city. Mystic Origin Sect, Sky Hibernating Sect, recruiting Scorpion servants. Cultivation base must be above the 7th level of the Mystic Origin stage. The pay is generous. Mystic Origin Sect, Traceless Sex Trial Content. Selling it for 10 elemental spirit stones. I have the trial content of the Earth Origin Sect, Firestorm Way. 1,000 elemental spirit stones. On both sides of the long street, some cultivators were shouting loudly. If they could really know the trial content in advance, and be prepared, their chances of entering the sect would indeed be greatly increased. The trial content of the Firestorm Way? Is it real? Don't think about it. Even if we mystic immortals enter the Earth Origin Sect, we'll only be servants. We won't have any status at all. Moreover, the Firestorm Way is one of the top 10 sects in Azure Cloud County. Even if we know the trial content, we won't be able to pass. Many mystic immortals were also looking around, hesitating. Su Zimo did not stay in this area, and continued walking. After walking for a while, the shouting of the sect gradually died down. On both sides of the long street in front of him, rows of immortal soldiers sat in rows with cold expressions. Their eyes were sharp and their bodies emitted a murderous aura. This murderous aura could only be cleansed by the battlefield. In front of these immortal soldiers, many mystic immortals of different cultivation bases were lined up. They left some information and divine sense imprints on jade slips one by one. Then they stood behind these immortal soldiers. These cultivators' faces were a little pale, and they looked nervous, as if they were worried about something. This area was extremely quiet, and the atmosphere was stifling. Many immortal soldiers were silent. The mystic immortals and cultivators who came did not dare to make a sound. Not long after, 1,000 people were gathered behind one of the immortal soldiers. "Follow me." The immortal soldier stood up and led the 1,000 mystic immortals away. Su Zimo had heard Su Shi mention it before. There were 3 great celestial kingdoms in the Divine Clouds continent. The methods of Earth immortals and Sky immortals were too powerful. There was a tacit understanding between the 3 great celestial kingdoms. It was an unwritten rule. If there was a conflict between the 3 great celestial kingdoms, the mystic immortals would fight for territory and resolve the conflict. Most of these mystic immortals were people who had ascended from the lower realm. In the eyes of many exalted immortals, the death of these people from the lower realm was nothing. It was like a group of ants that had died, a group of weeds that had been harvested. It could not shake the foundation of the 3 great celestial kingdoms. In fact, this was a game between the 3 great celestial kingdoms. The game was decided by sacrificing mystic immortals and people from the lower realm. According to Su Shi, although there were enough core condensing pills to join the border army of the great celestial kingdoms, the death rate was extremely high. Just now, out of the 1,000 people who had left, it would be good if 100 of them came back alive. No one cared about their lives. Su Shi was able to become the city lord of Dragon Lake City step by step, as a person from the lower realm. In fact, he had killed his way through the border battlefield. He had fought for tens of thousands of years at the border, and made countless contributions. In the end, he was rewarded by the county governor of Azure Cloud County. Even so, his position as city lord was still worthless in the eyes of many exalted immortals. Su Zimo paused in this area for a while before continuing forward. Even if he joined the border army, he would not be able to get core spirit stones. Not long after, Su Zimo left this area. There were many figures on both sides of the long street in front of him. There were some mystic immortals gathered. At the edge of this area, there was a huge token with the words minor written on it. Su Zimo let out a sigh of relief. He had come this time because he had his eyes on the core spirit stone outside of Glazed Light City. And the best way to get close to the core spirit stone was to become a miner. Chapter 1917. Compared to the recruitment of immortal soldiers at the border, there were even more cultivators here. Su Zimo stood outside the crowd and was not in a hurry to step forward. Su Shi had once mentioned that something dangerous could happen during the mining process, but he didn't know what exactly it would be. Fellow Taoist, please enlighten me. Su Zimo smiled faintly and stopped a rank 6 mystic immortal who was about to step forward. The rank 6 mystic immortal frowned, but when he scanned with his spirit consciousness and saw that Su Zimo was at Mystic Essence Realm Level 7, his expression turned serious, and he bowed slightly. Please ask, Exalted Immortal. May I know if there are any dangers during the mining process? Su Zimo did not beat around the bush and asked directly. Don't worry, Exalted Immortal. What dangers can there be in mining? It's just tiring, and we might be in the mines all year round without seeing the sun. The person replied with a smile. Haha, ignorant. Suddenly, a sneer sounded from the side. Su Zimo looked sideways and saw another rank 7 mystic immortal standing not far away. His face was full of rotten flesh, as though it was corroded by something, and emitted a foul stench. Even his nose was gone, and it was extremely frightening. There was no one around the noseless cultivator. All the cultivators stayed far away and were unwilling to get close. At this moment, the noseless cultivator looked at the crowd with a mocking expression and grinned. If we really encounter danger, none of you will be able to escape. The first stage 6 Xian immortal glanced at this person and was startled, but he didn't dare to refute. He submissively responded and hurriedly left. Su Zimo's expression was calm as usual. He came before the noseless cultivator and cupped his fists. Fellow Taoist, you're knowledgeable. Please enlighten me. What dangers can we encounter in the mining process? The noseless cultivator's expression softened when he saw that Su Zimo did not look down on him, and even greeted him respectfully. He said, if it's normal or, there won't be any danger. But if we're not careful and dig up some flesh and bones, we'll just have to wait for death. What flesh and bones? Su Zimo asked with a frown. The noseless cultivator said, there are only 2 ways to form this elemental spirit ore. Firstly, it is formed by the accumulation of yuan qi over a long period of time. The second possibility is that the corpses of some powerful creatures are buried underground. The flesh and bones of these creatures contain large amounts of heaven and earth yuan qi. After they died, this yuan qi was buried underground and could not be dispersed. As time passed, a mineral deposit gradually formed in the surroundings. Su Zimo seemed to be lost in thought. He pondered for a moment and asked again. In that case, the formation of this mineral deposit requires at least 100,000 years, or even hundreds of thousands of years. These buried corpses have long decomposed, right? You're right. The noseless cultivator laughed strangely and said, most of the corpses have indeed merged with the surrounding mineral deposits, leaving no trace behind. However, the noseless cultivator changed the topic, and his tone turned sinister with a menacing expression. The corpses of some experts might not decay even after hundreds of thousands of years. You'll be unlucky if you dig up those things. More than 1,000 years ago, There was a blood calamity of a spirit mine outside Glazed Light City. Someone dug up something, and a drop of blood flowed out of the mine. In the end, only a few of the tens of thousands of cultivators in the mine survived while the rest were buried underground. Pust! A single drop of blood had killed tens of thousands of people. On second thought, Su Zimo thought about it. What sort of immortal power did a drop of blood that did not dry up for hundreds of thousands of years contain? While he was secretly shocked, he inadvertently glanced at the noseless cultivator from the corner of his eye. At that moment, the noseless cultivator had a strange expression, as though he was recalling something. There was a hint of struggle and fear in his eyes as his body trembled slightly. You! Su Zimo's heart skipped a beat as he suddenly thought of a possibility and hesitated. Suddenly, the noseless cultivator laughed maniacally. You're right. I'm one of the lucky survivors of that calamity. My face was corroded by the mist emitted by that drop of blood. It's been more than 1,000 years, and I still look neither human nor ghost. The noseless cultivator gripped his fists tightly and gritted his teeth. After a moment of silence, Su Zimo asked again. Before mining, you should be able to avoid this if you use your spirit consciousness to check out the situation of the mineral deposits and act carefully, right? What do you know? The noseless cultivator sneered. The surface of the rocks in the mineral deposits has a unique stone layer formed naturally. Even the spirit consciousness of heavenly immortals and perfected immortals can't penetrate it and see what's inside, let alone the spirit consciousness of mystic immortals. Doesn't that mean that mining is even more dangerous than fighting at the borders? Su Zimo murmured softly, seemingly fearful. The noseless cultivator patted Su Zimo's shoulder and said, You don't have to worry. It's rare to find blood. If you're lucky, you might not even see it once in 100,000 years. Su Zimo observed from the side. The miners recruited were all mystic immortals. They were probably worried that the earth immortals would enter the mines and use the elemental spirit stones to cultivate. Mystic immortals would not be in such a situation. Mystic immortals who could cultivate taboo manuals were all geniuses, nurtured by big families and sections. What cultivation resources did they not have? These geniuses would not stoop so low as to come here to mine. What are the rules for becoming a miner? Su Zimo asked again. Everyone has to hand in 5,000 elemental spirit stones every year. If you can hand in 5,000 elemental spirit stones in advance, you can get a core condensation pill in advance and come out to rest. The noseless cultivator said. But don't look down on 5,000 elemental spirit stones. Most cultivators can't do it. Su Zimo asked. Will someone enter the mines and secretly hide the elemental spirit stones in their storage bags? I advise you not to have such thoughts, lest you get killed. The noseless cultivator warned. Su Zimo raised his eyebrows and said, Will someone search our storage bags every year? He had a lot of treasures in his storage bag. If that was the case, he would have to hide his storage bag in advance. That's not it. Who would have the energy to search us every year? The noseless cultivator said. Before entering the mines, there will be earth immortals who will seal our sea of consciousness and storage bags with their divine sense. Once you enter the mines, you can't even take things out, let alone hide things in your storage bags. The elemental spirit stone mine has been maintained for so many years. Why would there be a loophole for you to take advantage of? Su Zimo smiled but did not say anything. He had never thought of stealing elemental spirit stones when he entered the mines. He wanted to use elemental spirit stones to cultivate directly. Eternal Sage King. Chapter 1918. Su Zimo and the Noseless Cultivator followed an earth immortal to a spirit elemental mine outside of Glazed Light City. The spirit elemental mine was near a mountain peak in the Wuning mountain range. It was the 7th spirit elemental mine, under the jurisdiction of Glazed Light City. Generally speaking, every spirit elemental mine would have many veins. By digging along these veins, one could begin to collect spirit elemental stones. Of course, the amount of spirit elemental stones collected from each vein would be different. If one was lucky, one vein might be able to collect tens of thousands of spirit elemental stones. If one was unlucky, one vein might only produce tens of spirit elemental stones. Around the seventh spirit elemental mine, there were thousands of earth immortal experts guarding it. Among them, there was even a heavenly immortal expert. It was clear that Glazed Light City valued the spirit elemental mine. All these years, almost no one dared to have designs on the spirit elemental mine. Su Zimo and the Noseless Cultivator were assigned to a mine. Before entering the mine, there was indeed an earth immortal expert who sealed Su Zimo and the Noseless Cultivator's storage pouches and Sea of Consciousness with a secret technique. In fact, with Su Zimo's current cultivation, he was completely capable of breaking free from the seal. However, doing so would also alarm this person, so there was no need for that. After that, this person threw a storage pouch and a jade spade to Su Zimo and the Noseless Cultivator. Hand in 5,000 spirit elemental stones every year. After saying that, the person turned and left. The Noseless Cultivator explained, "The spirit elemental stones we collect are stored in this storage pouch. This jade spade is the best to use when we go down to mine." Su Zimo and the Noseless Cultivator followed the rope and slowly entered a mine. As the two continued to go deeper, the surroundings became more humid and gloomy. However, with their cultivation, they were able to see their surroundings clearly in such an environment. After a long time, the two finally landed on the ground. Although it was called a mine, it was extremely spacious. Below, there were many cultivators shuttling back and forth. Around them, there were a few caves where cultivators were waving jade spades, constantly digging out the sand in the caves to collect spirit elemental stones. Hihi! At the center of the mine, there was a burly man sitting there. His face was fierce-looking, his beard was unshaven, and his eyes were fierce. He was staring at Su Zimo and Li Mu, who were coming down, and laughed strangely. "Oh, there are two more newcomers." Su Zimo noticed this person as soon as he entered the mine. This was a level 8 mystic immortal. Including the two of them, there should be about 100 people in the mine. The Noseless Cultivator suddenly transmitted his voice. "This person should be the head of this mine. Generally speaking, we have to hand over 50 elemental holy stones to him every year. In this way, he doesn't have to do anything and can easily gather 5,000 spirit essence stones." "Are the guards above not going to do anything about this?" Su Zimo asked with a frown. The Noseless Cultivator curled his lips and said, "It's dark in the mine, and you might encounter some random things. The guards above are all very smart. Who would be willing to come down? Even if the guards know, they would turn a blind eye to it." Su Zimo pondered for a moment and his eyes flickered. No one knew what he was thinking. The Noseless Cultivator warned, "The head of the mine is the strongest in the mine, and he's the boss here. Do whatever he tells you to do. Let me give you a piece of advice. Take care of yourself, and don't even think about challenging him. You two newcomers should know the rules here, right?" "Right then," the burly man asked with a grin. "Yes." The Noseless Cultivator replied immediately. Su Zimo looked at the burly man quietly without saying anything. The corners of the muscular man's mouth curled up. He pointed at the dozens of badly mutilated, rotten corpses in the corner and said coldly, "Over the years, there have always been people who refused to be disciplined and tried to challenge the rules I set. This is what happened to them." "Don't worry, Exalted Immortal. I know. The Noseless Cultivator replied hurriedly. Su Zimo was still silent as he glared at the burly man, thinking about something else. Mining in this mine required him to hand over 5,000 elemental spirit stones every year. At the same time, he had to use the elemental spirit stones to cultivate. There was bound to be a conflict between the two. He did not want to waste time and effort to hand over the elemental spirit stones he collected to others. While Su Zimo was still thinking about how to deal with this matter, he realized that the solution was right in front of him. When the Noseless Cultivator saw that Su Zimo was not tactful, he left hurriedly and distanced himself from Su Zimo, afraid that the burly man would think that they were together. "Exalted Immortal, I don't know this person," the Noseless Cultivator explained intentionally. The burly man waved it off and stood up slowly, smirking at Su Zimo. "Lad, do you have a death wish? You were the one who set the rules here." Su Zimo smiled faintly. His smile was a little strange, as though he was up to no good. That's right. The burly man gripped his fists tightly with a ferocious gaze. His entire body tensed up like a demonic leopard that could pounce at any moment. Whoever has the bigger fist can set the rules here. Suzimo asked again. That's right. Before the burly man finished his sentence, he attacked first and pounced towards Suzimo. With a wave of his hand, he punched out and an extremely tragic blood stench burst forth that was suffocating. Mystic immortals who entered the mine would have their consciousness sealed, and could not use divine powers or dermic arts. What they competed with was their physical body, blood chi and melee combat strength. The burly man tempered his body all year round, and was terrifying in melee combat. He had dominated this mine for thousands of years, and no one was a match for him. Suzimo was like a weak scholar, and he did not take Suzimo seriously at all. Suzimo's expression was normal as he smiled faintly. He strode forward and suddenly extended his fair palm to suppress the burly man. The great chaos essence palm was released. Bang! The burly man's fist collided with Suzimo's palm. The burly man shuddered and felt an extremely terrifying power surge into his arms. His sleeves were torn, and the muscles on his arms felt as though they were being torn apart. Although the burly man was a grade 8 mystic immortal and specialized in body tempering, no matter how strong his body was, he could not match Qinglian's true body. Even without using blood qi, Qinglian's true body could suppress him. The burly man grunted and retreated hurriedly. Suzimo followed him like a shadow and pressed forward. The great chaos essence palm was still above the burly man's head and continued to suppress him. Helpless, the burly man could only raise his arms and barely defend against it. Bang! The great chaos essence palm landed where his arms were crossed. The burly man cried out tragically as his legs sank into the mud up to his knees. His arms were in excruciating pain, and he could not defend against it at all. The great chaos essence palm broke through the burly man's arms and continued to suppress him, slapping down towards the top of his head. My life is over. The burly man lamented in his heart. When the palm landed on his head, it suddenly retracted and hovered motionlessly. The burly man did not dare to act rashly. He knew very well that as long as Suzimo's palm exerted force, his mind would be shattered into pieces, and his essence spirit would be destroyed. The noseless cultivator and the surrounding miners were stunned on the spot with shocked expressions. The battle had just begun, and before many people could react, it was already over. Suzimo's voice sounded slowly. From this day forth, I'll set the rules here. Chapter 1919. What do you want? The burly man was stunned by Suzimo, and was a little flustered. The mine was dark all year round, and the Earth Immortal Realm experts outside would not come down here. Therefore the mine was a place of its own. If Suzimo really killed him and replaced him, no one would care about it. If you behave, I'll spare your life. Suzimo said coldly. I don't ask for much. You'll take care of the 5,000 elemental spirit stones that I have to hand over every year. Suzimo came down to the mine to cultivate. If he killed this burly man, he would not have the energy to manage the 100 or so people in the mine. Instead, it would be easy to cause trouble. The burly man heaved a sigh of relief, and his expression relaxed. It was just an extra 5,000 elemental spirit stones per year. It was a piece of cake. There were more than 100 people in the mine. As long as he was ruthless, he would be able to gather 5,000 elemental spirit stones. Don't worry, fellow Taoist. I'll take care of your 5,000 elemental spirit stones per year. The burly man said in a firm tone. Suzimo nodded and said, There's another thing. You stay here and watch. Don't let anyone enter the mine that I'm in. Down in the mine, there were numerous tunnels in every direction. Some mines had 2 or 3 cultivators working together. Some mines had more people. Suzimo was going to cultivate in the mine. Naturally, he could not let others see. No problem. The burly man agreed. These 2 requests were nothing to him. Suzimo looked around with a sharp gaze. None of the cultivators in the mine dared to look him in the eyes. The noseless cultivator regretted it. If he had known that this seemingly weak scholar had such means, He would not have been in a hurry to cut ties with him just now. Qinglian's real body was the most sensitive to the heaven and earth essence qi. Su Zimo closed his eyes for a while and walked to one of the mines that had been dug shallowly. There were cultivators who had dug more than 100 feet in this mine and left without any harvest. But Su Zimo sensed an extremely dense heaven-earth yuan qi in this mine. He held a jade shovel in his hand and continued to dig in the mine. As expected, after just 30 feet, he dug up a large piece of elemental spirit stone. This piece of elemental spirit stone weighed no less than 10 pounds. A single piece of elemental holy rock was half a kilogram. But this piece of spirit essence stone could be cut into 10 normal-sized spirit essence stones. Su Zimo was overjoyed, not to mention Dragon Abyss Star. Even the numerous earthly immortal realm experts on guard outside wouldn't be able to obtain origin spirit stones so easily. Su Zimo didn't hesitate in the slightest to sit down cross-legged, while holding a origin spirit stone in each hand. And then he circulated the Prajna Nirvana scripture to start refining and cultivating. Just like this, Su Zimo continued to gather elemental spirit stones while cultivating. His supply of elemental spirit stones had never been cut off. He cultivated every day. Time flew by year after year. All these years, Su Zimo had almost never left this mine. Every year, the burly stage 8 mystic immortal outside would help him pay the 5,000 elemental spirit stones. Almost all of his attention was placed on cultivation. With the help of Qinglian's true body and the Prajna Nirvana scripture, his cultivation advanced by leaps and bounds with the accumulation of endless cultivation resources. In the 189 years since he entered the mine, Su Zimo broke through and stepped into the 8th level of the mystic Aeon realm. This kind of cultivation speed could be said to be terrifying. Even the geniuses nurtured by many aristocratic families and sects would find it difficult to reach this level. Su Zimo became a stage 8 mystic immortal but didn't leave. He stayed in the mine and continued to cultivate. He was prepared to cultivate to stage 9 mystic immortal before making any plans. If possible, he was even prepared to break through the mystic Aeon realm and become an earthly immortal. In the 771 years since he entered the mine, Su Zimo stepped into the 9th level of the mystic Aeon realm. Over the years, the cultivators in this mine had changed batch after batch. Many of them couldn't persevere. However, regardless of whether it was the first cultivator or the later cultivators, they all knew one thing. In this mine, there was a mine cave that was a forbidden area. No one was allowed to enter. After Su Zimo became a stage 9 mystic immortal, he rested for a few days and didn't leave this place. Instead, he continued to cultivate toward the earthly Aeon realm. On this day, Su Zimo was using his cultivation method to refine the elemental spirit stones. While he was cultivating, he suddenly felt a familiar voice calling out to him from the depths of his heart. Su Zimo opened his eyes abruptly. Wu Dao's true body. Just a moment ago, he received a call from Wu Dao's true body and woke up with a start. At this moment, he re-established a connection with Wu Dao's true body. Qinglian's true body had floated in the black hole in the starry sky for a period of time. He couldn't sense the passage of time and didn't know how long she had been drifting in there. It wasn't until he established a connection with Wu Dao's true body that he knew the exact time. It had been 1,000 years since Qinglian's true body left Tianhuang region and came to the upper world. All these years, after Wu Dao's true body refined the dragon phoenix true body and merged it into his flesh and blood, he continued to cultivate. Back then, many immortals descended to the upper world and left Wu Dao's true body with many essence condensation pills and elemental spirit stones. Wu Dao's true body's fate will secret realm had already been cultivated to the 5th level. Wu Dao's true body had created an unprecedented cultivation path. Although the upper world and Qinglian's true body were separated, and it was difficult for Wu Dao's true body to meet. However, Su Zimo could vaguely sense that Wu Dao's true body at the 5th level of the Fate Wheel realm was definitely not weaker than a stage 9 mystic immortal in terms of strength. He might even be stronger than Qinglian's true body. Wu Dao's true body and Qinglian's true body were originally one and came from the same source. In a flash, The two of them understood many things. Prison suppression cauldron? Su Zimo murmured softly. That was a key piece of information he obtained about the bronze square tripod from Wu Dao's true body. In 1,000 years, the world had changed. Monkey, Linghu Qing Qing, Night Spirit, Little Fox and the Golden Lion chose to ascend together 300 years ago and left Tianhuang mainland. Old friends such as Ming Zhen, Lin Xuanji, Demonis Ji, Yen Beichen and the others had already ascended one after another. Of course, in the past 1,000 years, among the many experts who chose to ascend, some perished under the heavenly tribulations, and their souls dissipated. Among them, the one that shocked Tianhuang mainland was the failure of the Mystic Emperor's heavenly tribulation. After the Mystic Emperor chose a new guardian for the human emperor's palace, he abandoned everything and began his heavenly tribulation without any restraints. However, he did not expect that he would receive the 39 heavenly tribulations and died in the end. 100 years ago, Kitsun's heavenly tribulation attracted everyone's attention as well. It was not only because Kitsun was the eldest disciple of Wangu Wu Huang. More than that, it was because Kitsun was the second person in the past 1,000 years to successfully ascend after the ascension of Wangu Wu Huang. In Tianhuang mainland, Wu Dao prospered. After the 49 heavenly tribulations this time round, Wu Dao was pushed to the limits and was on par with the immortal Buddhist and fiend Daos. In fact, there were even many cultivators with heaven spirit roots who gave up on their innate talents and chose to cultivate Wu Dao. The legend of Wu Huang establishing his Dao was recorded by storytellers and circulated in the mortal world and cultivation world. Every year, countless cultivators would head to a small town in the north region to pay homage to him and witness the wondrous sight of the peach blossom forest and blooming flowers. However, nobody knew that there was truly a terrifying existence hidden in that small town in the depths of the peach blossom forest. You're tuning in to the Li Mei's Wuxia Whispers YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support. And don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.